On a gloomy morning in August, a palpable tension settled over the Westminster Magistrates' Court as Kavanagh materialized on the video screen, the connection crackling with uncertainty. The atmosphere was heavy with expectation, as the charges, each laden with the gravity of lethal weaponry, were meticulously recited. The infamous crime lord remained stoic, his arms folded, his countenance etched with unwavering determination. He absorbed every word with an eerie intensity. However, the courtroom was soon jolted by a bombshell revelation from the judge that sent shockwaves reverberating through every corner of the building. The implications of this revelation were dire. It was disclosed that Thomas "Bomber" Kavanagh, a senior figure within the notorious Kinahan cartel, had struck a deal with the UK's National Crime Agency. The court proceedings revealed that Kavanagh had disclosed the location of a secret cartel arms cache in a bid to secure a reduced prison sentence, ultimately leading the authorities to the concealed cache of 11 deadly weapons. The pressing question at hand revolves around whether this daring gamble will yield success or result in a catastrophic reversal of fortune. The once revered kingpin now finds himself tarnished with the ignominious label of an informant and a duplicitous turncoat. His own associates, the very moles he relied upon, are beginning to distance themselves from him. It's evident that Bomber Kavanagh has skillfully maneuvered himself into a perilous predicament that strikes fear into the heart of every criminal. Thomas Bomber Kavanagh, a figure of infamy within Ireland's criminal underworld, assumed leadership of the Kinahan cartel's UK branch after relocating to the United Kingdom. He is known to be married to Joanne Byrne, the sister of Liam and David Byrne, solidifying his connections within the criminal world. Additionally, Bomber Kavanagh is affiliated with the Byrne Crime Organization, a significant component of the Kinahan's extensive criminal network. However, in the year 2022, the final act played out for the kingpin as he faced a crushing 21-year prison sentence. This formidable punishment was meted out for his orchestration of a colossal €200 million drug smuggling operation, which was subsequently reduced to €36 million following his admission of guilt. Presently, a cloud of speculation envelops Kavanagh's interactions with law enforcement. As the investigation progressed, it came to light that Bomber was more than willing to divulge insider information about his criminal undertakings. His cooperation marks a stark departure from his previous stance, prompting the question, will he succumb to pressure now that another substantial prison term looms? Or will he adhere to the Omerta code of silence? Regardless of the outcome, the Kinahan cartel's anxiety is likely to soar to unprecedented levels. Around 2016-2017, Thomas Bomber Kavanagh was perched at the pinnacle of his power, seemingly untouchable. Yet, the tide swiftly turned in 2017 when law enforcement conducted a raid on the premises of the Green Oak Industrial Estate in Dublin, unearthing a cache of weapons, drugs, and incriminating documents. This event marked a pivotal moment that forever altered the landscape of Kavanagh's criminal empire. The raid set in motion an exhaustive investigation, with the Garda collaborating closely with the UK's National Crime Agency, ultimately leading to Kavanagh's current lengthy prison sentence. While he serves this substantial term, Kavanagh recently found himself back in court, facing charges related to firearms offenses. He stands trial alongside two co-accused individuals, Sean Kent and Daniel McLaughlin, as part of the same investigation that also resulted in his son, Jack, and brother-in-law, Liam Byrne, being arrested in Spain and subsequently extradited. During the investigation, intercepted EncroChat messages linked Liam Byrne and Jack Kavanagh to a network involved in procuring firearms for sale to other organized crime groups. Upon their extradition, they will face the same charges as Kavanagh, who is currently confronted with 5 firearms-related charges. The court also learned that Kavanagh had been accused of sourcing the 11 firearms discovered in Newry in May 2021. The sheer quantity of weaponry ordered by a specific criminal network is a testament to the scale of Kavanagh's operation in the illicit arms trade. From a law enforcement perspective, this case assumes immense significance. The investigation hinges on EncroChat handles and the intelligence gathered regarding firearms, some of which were found stashed in Ireland. The courtroom witnessed a truly astonishing twist as it emerged that Kavanagh had, in fact, played a pivotal role in guiding law enforcement officers to the weapons location in Newry. Evidently, Kavanagh had orchestrated the disposal of the arms and orchestrated their exposure to the police as part of a calculated plan. Officers from the NCAA, National Crime Agency, believed that Liam Byrne, Jack Kavanagh, and Sean Kent had conspired to obstruct justice by devising a scheme to disclose the whereabouts of the weapons, all in an effort to secure a reduced prison term for Thomas Kavanagh. Additionally, Peter Keating's name surfaced in this intricate web of criminal dealings. Keating, who is currently serving an 11-year sentence for his involvement in a failed assassination attempt on James Mago Gately, is suspected of still exerting control over a network of serious criminals operating in the Clondalkin area. Sean Kent stands accused of using the encrypted EncroChat from his prison cell to orchestrate this elaborate plot. In the court's view, he employed the code names Marcos, Cafu, and Firm Cleaner. The initial EncroChat messages came to light when the French authorities gained access to the communication platform and subsequently shared the intelligence with the NCA. As a result of the unraveling of these events, Bomber's criminal network suffered significant dismantling, with many threads tracing back to the Green Oak raid in 2017. This operation led to the discovery of the hidden weapons cache, triggering the decline of his once formidable criminal empire. The seizure of various documents linked to Kavanagh's gang unveiled critical insights into the cartel's primary smuggling routes for transporting trucks and weapons from Europe into the UK and Ireland. These documents were subsequently transmitted to the UK, where Kavanagh resided in the upscale Midland suburb of Tamworth. This, in turn, initiated a major investigation by the NCAA into an import-export firm. The ensuing raids effectively disrupted the Kinahan cartel's money laundering operations, which had relied on a network of seemingly ordinary companies and money launderers without significant criminal convictions. Following the discovery of the hidden arms cache, law enforcement turned their attention to Bomber's criminal group in the UK. Eventually, the tracking device on a machine containing illicit drugs led officials to the port of Dover. This breakthrough allowed officers to scrutinize numerous other drug shipments. Thomas Kavanagh, along with his co-accused individuals, Gary Vickery and Daniel Canning, found themselves incarcerated as a result. However, a proceeds of crime case is still in progress, with a particular focus on Kavanagh's assets, including a stash uncovered at his residence in Tamworth, Birmingham. The records from 2017 illustrated how swiftly the Byrne Organization, under Kavanagh's leadership, re-established itself in the criminal enterprise after the Regency Hotel shooting in February 2016. Just months following the tragic death of David Byrne, they were already hatching plans for new drug and weapon imports. By that Christmas, they were jubilantly celebrating in New York after successfully smuggling their first shipment. Nevertheless, their activities eventually unraveled, leading to law enforcement's discovery of the Green Oak location just a month later. The ongoing investigation into the significant firearms plot has been conducted in parallel with these events and is likely to signal the end of Bomber's criminal career, assuming it still exists at all. The mere suggestion that he may have cooperated with the police spells doom for Bomber Kavanagh in his dealings with the Kinahans. It's widely understood that the world of organized crime does not take kindly to informants. As Thomas Bomber Kavanagh hovers on the edge of an uncertain destiny, an intriguing question looms. Will he persist as a wellspring of revelations, collaborating with authorities in the hope of securing clemency? This is a query that not only intrigues the authorities but must surely pique the interest of the cartel as well. Considering that Kavanagh could potentially face an additional 20 years if found guilty on the firearms charge, cooperation with the authorities might be his only lifeline to reducing his prison sentence. Furthermore, this collaboration could have a ripple effect on the sizable criminal assets case currently looming over him, estimated at a staggering €42 million. As the former head of the Kinahan cartel's UK division, Kavanagh possesses a formidable bargaining chip, one that likely has Daniel Kinahan racked with anxiety. Kavanagh was often seen as the right-hand man of Daniel Kinahan, and their alliance solidified following the Regency Hotel shooting, particularly in their involvement in the subsequent spate of murders. In a joint attempt to assassinate James Mago Gately, they both lost key associates when the Estonian hitman, Imran Arakas, made a critical error. Kavanagh's associate, Peter Keating, and Kinahan's confidant, Douglas Glynn, found themselves behind bars. The impending charges against Kavanagh likely add to the troubles he faces. Daniel Kinahan is certainly a wanted figure in Ireland, and the situation with Kavanagh could only exacerbate his legal entanglements. Kavanagh's extensive history with the Kinahan cartel, spanning from its inception, potentially makes him an invaluable resource for the authorities. The cartel must be grappling with ways to impede any cooperation on his part, given the unfathomable levels of paranoia that pervade this underworld. It's evident that Bomber holds secrets that could have a profound and lasting impact on the criminal landscape. The demise of the Byrne crime group seems imminent, with one brother deceased, the other just extradited from Spain. The son-in-law, Bomber, likely negotiating with the police, and even his son, Jack, in custody. To top it off, cousin Fat Freddie Thompson is serving a life sentence for murder. The outlook appears bleak for the Byrne crime group, and it remains to be seen how this gripping saga unfolds. A bounty of $5 million adorned the wanted posters for both Daniel and Christopher Kinahan, individuals infamous for leading a cartel that has spread terror across Ireland, the UK, and Spain over several years. While their notoriety is widely acknowledged, the true linchpin of their operations lies in the financial realm. How did they navigate the movement of their funds? What strategies did they employ to finance their operations, allowing them to enjoy their fortunes without attracting the attention of law enforcement? The answer to that question is you get yourself a Mr. Nobody. From epic rivalry wars to a trail of murders and the establishment of a colossal criminal enterprise, the Kinahan family has solidified its position as one of Europe's most lethal cartels. Their activities span a spectrum, ranging from offering hitmen for hire services to engaging in drug smuggling and gun running. This cartel stands as a compelling subject for in-depth examination within law enforcement circles. Let's rewind to the 1990s, the genesis of it all. Christopher Kinahan embarked on his criminal journey as a local drug supplier in a modest Dublin neighborhood. Since those humble beginnings, he has successfully transformed his enterprise into a multi-million-dollar criminal organization. At the apex of the Byrne Organised Crime Group, however, lurks a mysterious figure known as Mr. Nobody, also identified as Declan Brady. Brady's origins trace back to Drimna, where he was raised by a father grappling with alcoholism. Opting to forego formal education, Brady left school at the age of 14 to work alongside his father, eventually securing his own truck license. This exceptionally intelligent and elusive criminal earned the moniker Mr. Nobody because he managed to remain completely off the radar of law enforcement until 2016. Unveiling the enigmatic persona of Mr. Nobody, aka Declan Brady, adds an extra layer of intrigue to the intricate web of the Kinahan cartel's history. Calador in Majorca, Spain, serves as an idyllic retreat for tourists seeking relaxation and respite from their hectic schedules. Declan Brady and Thomas "Bomber" Kavanagh, both prominent members of the Kinahan cartel in the Irish and Spanish divisions, seemingly shared the common goal of enjoying a leisurely break when they visited this renowned Spanish destination. Their vacation, however, took a dark turn due to a decision by the cartel to target Jonathan Hutch, a member of the rival Hutch gang who coincidentally booked a last-minute trip to the island. Peter Keating and Thomas "Bomber" Kavanagh orchestrated the plot, flying in the notorious hitman Glenn Clark to assassinate Jonathan Hutch in August 2016. Unfortunately, the assassination attempt went awry, resulting in the tragic death of tourist Trevor O'Neill instead of Hutch. Trevor O'Neill lost his life right before his wife and children. Following the senseless murder, Glenn Clark, seemingly enraged after Hutch managed to escape unharmed, continued his assault. Meanwhile, Thomas "Bomber" Kavanagh continued to bask in the sun, seemingly oblivious to the unfolding tragedy. Their residence in Calador, Majorca, was discovered in the aftermath of the murder. Declan Brady was later apprehended several months later in Kavanagh's headquarters at Dublin's Greenock Business Park, where weaponry was found, poised for use. The violent saga continued as at least 6 gunmen, some disguised as members of the Garda Emergency Response Unit and armed with AK-47, donned masks, army-style helmets, and flak jackets. They orchestrated a brutal attack during a boxing weigh-in at the Regency Hotel in North Dublin on February 5, 2016. The target, 33-year-old David Byrne, endured 6 gunshot wounds to the head, face, chest, stomach, hands, and legs, marking one of the bloodiest incidents in the ongoing Hutch-Kinahan rivalry war. Daniel Kinahan, the son of Christy Kinahan, appeared to be the intended target, but he had already left the scene. Security camera footage later revealed that 6 individuals, including one who had assumed a female identity before the incident, were involved. In a cunning move, Declan Brady managed to deceive the public and law enforcement, presenting himself as an unremarkable individual on the streets. However, his presence at the funeral of David Byrne brought him into the spotlight of the authorities. In the aftermath of the incident, the guards meticulously examined footage and photos of mourners, particularly those who aligned themselves with the Kavanagh and Kinahan factions by wearing suits. This marked the commencement of a protracted and covert investigation into Declan Brady's life and connections to the criminal underworld. Unfortunately for Brady, this initiated the Guards' crackdown on their criminal enterprise. A few weeks into the Guards' pursuit of their criminal organization, significant developments unfolded. Thomas Kavanagh, also known as Bomber, and Declan Brady, aka Mr. Nobody, along with other key players, had reportedly flown to New York. Reports suggested they were in a celebratory mood, with their festivities tied to the success of Kavanagh's gang in orchestrating the first 2 shipments out of over 20, consisting of cocaine and cannabis worth a total of €36 million destined for the UK. Regrettably, their jubilation was abruptly halted due to a tip received by the UK's National Crime Agency, revealing that front businesses were utilized by the Kinahan gang for money laundering and to conduct their illicit operations. This tip surfaced following the seizure of documents at a Dublin-based cartel weapons storage site during a crucial raid. A significant piece of evidence obtained in the bust included documentation linked to a UK logistics firm in the Midlands associated with Gary Vickery and Daniel Canning. In January 2017, armed guards raided a warehouse in West Dublin's Greenogue industrial estate, resulting in Brady's arrest. The search uncovered an arsenal of approximately 15 guns and numerous rounds of ammunition. Furthermore, several high-ranking Kinahan members were detained. Subsequently, a search of Brady's modest home in the Kildare town of Naas yielded more information about his imports and connections to organized crime. This included rubber-banded money from the Kinahan's narcotics business tucked inside a Nike shoebox, as well as a black leather bag containing cash vacuum-packed and prepared for transportation out of the country. After the gun seizure at the Greenogue industrial estate, Declan Brady received an 11.5-year sentence for firearms-related offenses. Despite serving the sentence, he was later handed an additional 7 years and 3 months for crimes related to money laundering, along with his wife Deidre and his mistress Erica Lukacs. Mrs. Brady confessed to laundering €770,499, while Miss Lukacs admitted to laundering €196,864. Both received sentences with full suspension. The operation, executed by the Guards' Drugs and Organized Crime Bureau, resulted in the removal of more than a dozen deadly weapons from circulation. This operation unfolded during the height of the Hutch-Kinahan rivalry, which led to up to 18 fatalities. Brady's extravagant expenditures included a payment of €66,301 to the 5-star Druids Glen Hotel in Wicklow for a family wedding, and a monthly expense of €3,000 for his apartment in Majorca. Notably, over a 5-year period, more than €140,000 were sent to Brady's boss, Thomas Bomber Kavanagh, with Brady's wife Deirdre unknowingly aiding in the laundering of illicit proceeds. Additionally, it was revealed that Mr. Nobody was having an affair with Erica Lukacs. In the most recent development, Declan Mr. Nobody Brady has entered a guilty plea for his involvement in facilitating a criminal organization in the murder of Noel Duckegg Kerwin, an innocent individual with no ties to criminal activities. This revelation unfolded during a session at the Special Criminal Court on Friday, January 12th. Brady, currently in custody for previously mentioned offenses, pleaded guilty to the single charge brought against him during the proceedings. A sentencing hearing date is expected to be determined by the end of January. Meanwhile, Brady's co-accused, Michael Crotty, saw an adjournment in his case to provide him the opportunity to consult with his legal representatives. The charges against Brady specifically allege that between October 20th, 2016 and December 22nd, 2016, within the state and with knowledge of the existence of a criminal organization, he actively participated in or contributed to activities, or acted recklessly regarding whether such participation or contribution could facilitate the commission of a serious offense by a criminal organization or any of its members. In this instance, the offense pertains to the murder of Christopher, aka Noel Kerwin, as outlined in Section 72 of the Criminal Justice Act. After nearly 2 decades in prison, Brian Rattigan, a convicted murderer, has re-emerged as a prominent figure in Dublin's criminal underworld, particularly in the drug trade. Despite earlier speculation of reduced criminal activity, recent reports suggest that Rattigan and his associates have become key players, prompting heightened attention from law enforcement, notably the Garda, to dismantle their operations. Brian Rattigan, known as the King Rat in Dublin's criminal circles, rose to prominence during the Crumlin-Drumnagh feud, initially engaging in petty crimes like car theft and street-level drug dealing with his teenage friends. Over time, their small group transformed into the primary drug suppliers in South Dublin, signifying a notable evolution in their criminal endeavors. Let's delve into it. a pivotal event on March 9, 2000, Garda launched a raid on a hotel room at the Holiday Inn, located on Pierce Street in Dublin. The raid uncovered a bustling drug operation, triggering the escalation of the Crumlin-Drimnagh feud. Within the room, 3 young men barely out of their teens were caught in the act of cutting cocaine. The profits from this illicit activity were intended to be divided among members of gangs hailing from both Crumlin and Drimnagh, with Brian Rattigan among them. The seizure included 2 kilograms of cocaine and 49,000 ecstasy tablets, resulting in the arrest of the 3 individuals involved. The pressure intensified for all 3 men following their apprehension, as they were essentially caught in the act. However, there arose a perplexing situation when one of them, Declan Gavin, a 20-year-old senior member of the gang, was unexpectedly released without charges after just 2 days. This sudden turn of events raised suspicions among the group. Some doubted the official explanation that Gavin's departure from the room prior to the Garda raid was the sole reason for his release. Instead, they speculated that Gavin may have collaborated with law enforcement, particularly since the other 2 individuals faced serious charges related to cocaine and ecstasy possession, with intent to distribute, ultimately resulting in their conviction and lengthy prison sentences. Amidst the absence of concrete evidence, certain members of the gang swiftly labeled Gavin as a traitor, alleging his involvement as an informant. This accusation fractured the gang into 2 opposing factions, one led by Brian Rattigan and his brother from Cooley Road in Drimnagh, and the other spearheaded by Freddie Thompson from Loretto Road in Maryland. Notably, the latter faction eventually merged with other criminals based in Crumlin, effectively becoming the primary suppliers for the Kinahan cartel in the South Inner City area. The Crumlin-Drimnagh feud claimed its first fatal casualty in the form of Declan Gavin, a close associate of Freddie Thompson. In August 2001, Gavin was brutally stabbed outside an Abracadabra fast food restaurant in Crumlin by a masked assailant who swiftly fled the scene in a getaway car driven by an accomplice. During the subsequent court proceedings, it emerged that Brian Rattigan, amidst celebrating his brother's birthday, received word that Gavin was outside the restaurant, making him a prime suspect in the eyes of investigators. Thompson vowed retaliation for Gavin's killing. Tragically, the violence escalated further when Joseph Rattigan, Brian's 18-year-old brother, fell victim to a retaliatory attack in July 2002. He was fatally shot on Cooley Road in Crumlin. This event marked a turning point as it catalyzed a string of additional fatalities in the ongoing feud, claiming the lives of 15 more individuals. Brian Rattigan himself narrowly escaped death when he was targeted in a shooting incident. He managed to evade his assailants by leaping from an upper window of his residence. However, his luck eventually ran out when he was apprehended in 2003 after exchanging gunfire with Garda during a chase. This, coupled with a series of other violent and drug-related offenses, resulted in Rattigan receiving a 13-year prison sentence. In December 2009, Brian Rattigan was convicted of the murder of Declan Gavin, adding a mandatory life sentence to the 13-year prison term he had received in 2003. Many in the neighborhood had hoped that this, along with the killing of drug dealer Anthony Kinahan, would bring an end to the feud. Kinahan's death marked the 15th gang-related killing in Dublin in 2009. However, the peace was short-lived, as the feud once again made headlines following 2 murders in quick succession. On September 24, 2012, a gunman invaded the home of 27-year-old Gerrard Eglinton in Port Arlington, fatally shooting him in front of his 11-year-old stepdaughter and 1-month-old son. The following day, Declan O'Reilly, who had narrowly survived a previous attempt on his life, was gunned down while walking with his young son along Dublin's South Circular Road. Garda suspected that one of Freddie Thompson's close associates may have ordered these killings, further fueling the cycle of violence in the ongoing feud. In 2013, Brian Rattigan faced additional legal consequences when he was convicted of orchestrating a drug network from his prison cell in Port Leash. This marked the first instance in the state's history of someone being found guilty of drug trafficking while incarcerated. Rattigan, known as King Ratt, was found to have held approximately €1 million worth of heroin for trading while serving his sentence. During a raid on his cell located on the prison's E-landing, Garda discovered Rattigan lying on his bed with a phone in his possession. Subsequent examination of the phone revealed incriminating text messages, wherein Rattigan made references to items labeled as half bars and nines, alongside names such as Jenko and McGovern. These messages, coupled with a list and notes found within his cell, were determined by the court to constitute orders for drug transactions. As a result, Rattigan received an additional 17-year prison sentence for his involvement in drug-related activities while behind bars. In 2017, Brian Rattigan succeeded in his appeal to the Supreme Court regarding the 2001 murder of Declan Gavin. His conviction was overturned from murder to the lesser offense of manslaughter after he pleaded guilty. Consequently, his sentence was reduced to 9 years. After serving his time, Rattigan was released from Portlaoise Prison, Ireland's highest security facility, in August 2021. Upon his release, instead of being escorted by Garda, Rattigan was observed walking out of the prison by an armed member of the defense forces stationed on the roof. Notably, as he left, Rattigan wore a necklace adorned with a picture of his beloved younger brother, Joseph. Shortly after Brian Rattigan's release, Derek Delboy Hutch, the nephew of Jerry Hutch, was also freed from Wheatfield Prison. The two individuals were picked up in a hired go-car, which swiftly sped away after they boarded. High-ranking Garda officers expressed concerns about the release of these two individuals, as they were both known to have conflicts with members of the Kinahan cartel. This situation posed significant security challenges and complexities in certain areas of the city. Upon his release, Brian Rattigan wasted no time in leaving the country. Over the past year, Garda sources have reported sightings of him in the UK and Spain. Despite Rattigan's claims in court of being a reformed and law-abiding individual, his return to Dublin has marked his resurgence as a prominent figure in the city's criminal underworld. Recent high-value drug and weapon seizures linked to Rattigan have led Garda to believe that he has once again assumed a central role in the organized criminal landscape of the capital. Moreover, Rattigan and his gang are under investigation for their alleged involvement in 2 murders that occurred in 2022, further intensifying law enforcement scrutiny on their activities. In September, Tony Dempsey fell victim to a fatal assault in the North Inner City, perpetrated by an associate of Brian Rattigan. His body, discovered a week after the attack, was found in a flat at Kevinberry House on Coleraine Street, with residents unaware of the grim discovery as they came and went. Earlier in June, Gary Carey was subjected to a targeted shooting outside a Kilmainham hotel, marking the 3rd attempt on his life within the span of about a year. Suffering multiple gunshot wounds, Carey was left in a critical condition, and despite receiving medical attention at the scene, he succumbed to his injuries a few weeks later. It's reported that during his treatment, Carey implicated Rattigan as the orchestrator of the attack, adding another layer of complexity to the ongoing investigation. The primary suspects in the attempted murder of Gary Carey are individuals associated with Brian Rattigan. Carey has been entangled in a long-standing feud with Rattigan, and also with the West Dublin faction known as the Family. While there's no direct suspicion of Rattigan's personal involvement, detectives are exploring the possibility of his role in orchestrating the attack, or if it was carried out by members of the West Dublin criminal network. If investigators' suspicions are substantiated, it underscores Rattigan's resurgence as a notable figure in the criminal underworld. According to Garda, Brian Rattigan is believed to primarily reside in Spain, where he oversees a criminal enterprise operating across West Dublin, Dublin 12, and the South Inner City. In 2015, Ireland's primary anti-gang unit, the Drugs and Organised Crime Bureau, launched Operation Thor to target burglary gangs. This involved a specialized team of Garda officers using advanced vehicles to pursue criminals. Initially comprising 6 members, however, a significant upgrade occurred in 2016 when they added a silver Golf R to their fleet. This wasn't just any car, but one that had previously belonged to Liam Byrne, a prominent figure in the Byrne Organised Crime Gang. During a raid on the gang in March 2016, 29 vehicles, including the distinctive Golf R, were seized. Liam Byrne, a prominent criminal in Ireland, leads the Byrne Organised Crime Group, linked to the Kinahan Cartel. Despite his involvement in drug trade, gang conflicts, and gun smuggling, Byrne has never been imprisoned for organized crime activities. Who is Liam Byrne, known as Bugsy, and how did he become one of Ireland's top crime bosses and a trusted Kinahan associate? Let's delve into it. Born in October 1980, Byrne grew up in Crumlin, southwest Dublin, surrounded by a family deeply entrenched in crime. His father, James Jaws Byrne, has a criminal history, once associated with notorious robber Martin the General Cahill. Liam's mother, Sadie, comes from the Rowe family, closely linked to Dublin's organized crime scene. Benefiting from these connections, Liam ascended in Dublin's underworld, relying heavily on family ties, especially with relatives like Fat Freddie Thompson, Liam Brannigan, and Liam Rowe. 7 of his gang's 17 key members are first cousins from the Rowe family. The Byrne family resides in Crumlin, with Jaws owning the house despite lacking a legitimate income. Over the years, authorities seized cash and assets from their home, including a Rolex watch worth over 35,000 euros. Despite these actions, Jaws has never clarified the source of his wealth. From his early teens, Liam Byrne, known for his violent tendencies, engaged in drug dealing and robberies with a gang of teenage boys from Crumlin and Drimnagh. They were supplied drugs by Kinahan, operating between Ireland and the UK. Liam received a suspended sentence for armed robberies at age 17, but later served time after attacking Trevor Donnelly with a baseball bat. Despite attempting to influence Donnelly's partner not to testify, she did, and was subsequently assaulted. Before Liam's imprisonment, his gang split following a Garda raid, leading to a feud between factions. Declan Gavin, a close friend of Liam, was killed in this conflict, with David Byrne, Liam's brother, testifying against the perpetrator, Rattigan. Upon Liam's release from Mountjoy Prison in 2004, his teenage gang had transformed into a major drug trafficking organization led by Fat Freddie Thompson, fueled by supplies from Kinahan. Liam joined Kinahan in Spain, coordinating drug and weapon shipments to Ireland before returning due to heightened scrutiny from Spanish authorities. Back in Ireland, Liam partnered with Thompson to oversee drug shipments from Kinahan and manage their distribution and debt collection. Thompson's departure in 2007 to 2008, prompted by a feud with the INLA, allowed Liam to assume leadership of the gang, later dubbed the Byrne Organized Crime Group by the Criminal Assets Bureau. For nearly 6 years, their focus was managing the Kinahan cartel's operations in Ireland. Despite law enforcement efforts, including drug seizures worth over 10 million euros, the gang's operations continued largely unabated, with drugs flowing in from countries like Afghanistan, Morocco, and Colombia. The situation intensified dramatically in 2016, when Gary Hutch, once considered Daniel Kinahan's right-hand man, turned against him, sparking a deadly feud between the Kinahans and the Hutch family. Gary was killed in Spain in 2015, leading to a retaliatory attack at Dublin's Regency Hotel during a boxing event attended by Daniel Kinahan and members of the Byrne Group. David Byrne, Liam's brother, was fatally shot in this attack. The meticulously planned assault, executed by at least 12 members of the Hutch gang, immediately escalated the feud. Even before David Byrne's funeral, Eddie Hutch, Gary's uncle, was fatally shot. Over the next 6 months, a series of killings ensued, with the Kinahan-Hutch feud claiming 18 lives to date. A month following the Regency attack, Garda raided properties linked to the Kinahans and Byrnes, including Liam's residence. Purchased in 2011 in his sister's name for 250,000 euros, the house underwent extensive renovation totaling 740,000 euros, featuring lavish amenities like a gym, bar, home cinema, and jacuzzi. It boasted top-tier security measures including bulletproof windows, CCTV, and a panic room. Adorned with sports memorabilia, including signed jerseys and photos with celebrities like boxer Marvin Hagler, one room served as a gathering place for gang members. Perceived as the leader of the Byrne crime group, Liam's car dealership, used to launder drug proceeds, was closed down. Assets including luxury cars, cash, watches, and properties were seized, with the High Court determining 2.7 million euros worth were from criminal activities. Liam's house was confiscated and listed for sale in 2021 at 400,000 euros, yet remains unsold. Now vacant and dilapidated, it stands deserted with boarded-up windows and doors, surrounded by overgrown vegetation. After facing setbacks from the Kinahan-Hutch feud and the Criminal Assets Bureau, Liam fled to the UK in 2019, settling in Birmingham near his brother-in-law Thomas Bomber Kavanagh, a key figure in both the Byrne and Kinahan operations. Bomber, once a leader in the cartel's UK operations, was sentenced to 21 years in prison in March 2022 for drug importation. Liam then assumed control of Kinahan's UK operations. Alongside Sean McGovern, Liam was identified by the CAB as a top figure in Irish organized crime. In a dramatic turn, Liam was arrested on the island of Majorca upon returning to Ireland, marking the end of his reign at the top of the criminal hierarchy, and potentially weakening the Dublin branch of the Kinahan cartel. Byrne's luck seemed to have finally run out when heavily armed police apprehended him during a clandestine trip to the Spanish holiday island. The 43-year-old crime figure, known for eluding justice for years, now faces the prospect of a lengthy prison term. The Byrne Organised Crime Gang has been a prominent force in Ireland's underworld, notorious for their involvement in drug trafficking and violent activities. Through their close association with the Kinahan cartel, they solidified their position within the criminal landscape, leveraging the cartel's familial bonds to their advantage. Law enforcement suspected Byrne and his associates of playing a pivotal role in the series of murders and assaults targeting the Hutch family and their affiliates following the Regency incident. With the Criminal Assets Bureau closing in, Byrne sought refuge in the UK. There, he is believed to have assumed the role of second-in-command in the Kinahan cartel, succeeding his associate Thomas Bomber Kavanagh. However, intelligence suggested that Byrne had somewhat distanced himself from the cartel's upper echelons. In the Middle East, he purportedly established his own criminal network, allegedly engaged in the trafficking of firearms and drugs. The UK's National Crime Agency had been conducting an investigation into Byrne's activities concurrently with an ongoing probe into the criminal assets of Thomas Bomber Kavanagh. Additionally, Byrne faced allegations of threatening individuals in England, including a property developer and several business figures. However, his most serious offense was leading a criminal organization involved in weapons trafficking within the UK. Reports indicate that Byrne's group acquired handguns and submachine guns engineered to evade detection and complicate police investigations, subsequently selling them to other criminal entities. The scope of the operation was extensive, with one organization placing an order for 14 firearms at once. Facing mounting debts and heightened scrutiny from law enforcement, Byrne sought refuge in Dubai in 2021, where he continued to oversee his criminal activities from afar. However, financial pressures caught up with him over the following 2 years. Allegedly, Byrne resorted to issuing threats to numerous car dealerships in Dublin in an attempt to collect outstanding debts. It was during an investigation into these activities that the NCA uncovered his clandestine trip to Mallorca to reunite with his family. British authorities promptly alerted the Spanish National Police's fugitive unit, leading to Byrne's arrest in a well-coordinated operation. Spanish officers apprehended Byrne while he was dining at a restaurant in Alcudia, accompanied by his 2 underage children. Through inquiries, officers were able to identify a vehicle he might be using, narrowing down the search to that area. Byrne offered no resistance during the arrest, and lacking identification was taken into custody. His children were safely entrusted to a friend. The apprehension of Liam Byrne marked a significant setback for the Kinahan cartel, compounded by the earlier arrest of another individual associated with the cartel at Malaga Airport. Jack Kavanagh, the 22-year-old son of Bomber Kavanagh, was detained as he transited from Dubai to Turkey. Both Byrne and Kavanagh were implicated in the supply and acquisition of firearms, as evidenced by intercepted EncroChat messages. These arrests were part of an intelligence-driven operation led by the UK's National Crime Agency, with collaboration from the Spanish National Police and the Irish law enforcement. The joint endeavor aimed to dismantle the Kinahan crime syndicate, a prime focus for law enforcement agencies due to its extensive involvement in organized crime. Subsequent to his arrest, Byrne appeared before an extradition judge in Spain, expressing his intent to contest extradition to the UK. However, he ultimately lost the extradition battle and was extradited in December of last year. Currently awaiting trial for his alleged participation in serious firearms and organized crime activities, Byrne shares confinement with some of the UK's most notorious criminals. Today's developments underscore the ongoing efforts of international law enforcement agencies to disrupt and dismantle organized crime networks. The collaboration between agencies across borders highlights the determination to hold individuals accountable for their illicit activities, contributing to the broader goal of enhancing public safety.
The Kinahan cartel, founded in Dublin in the late 1990s by Christy Kinahan, has become one of the world's most infamous criminal organizations. What started as a local street gang grew into a global crime syndicate, with assets estimated at €1 billion. Under Christie's leadership, the group expanded beyond Dublin, establishing connections across Europe. However, when his son Daniel took control, the cartel's activities took a darker turn. The organization became entangled in the Kinahan-Hutch feud, one of Ireland's bloodiest gang conflicts, resulting in 18 deaths and drawing unprecedented attention to the cartel. The violence was so extreme that Irish courts labeled the Kinahan group a murderous organization. In April 2022, the US Department of State offered substantial rewards for information to dismantle the cartel, elevating it from a national issue to an international priority. Despite increasing pressure from global law enforcement, the Kinahan cartel has shown resilience. They continue orchestrating multi-million-euro drug shipments, adapting to challenges. While top members, including Daniel Kinahan, live luxuriously in Dubai, their Irish operations persist. For years, Ross Browning was thought to oversee the cartel's activities in Ireland as their main man in Dublin. However, recent developments indicate a significant power shift within the organization. A new figure has emerged to lead the cartel's Irish operations, marking a crucial moment in the group's history. This change in leadership comes as the cartel attempts to rebuild its presence in Ireland, despite sustained pressure from law enforcement since 2016. The organization's ability to adapt and the loyalty of its members have allowed it to maintain influence in the criminal underworld, even as authorities work to dismantle its operations both in Ireland and internationally. Liam Brannigan, a father of two from Bride Street in Dublin 8, is stepping into the role of the Kinahan cartel's new boss in Ireland. His rise reflects the complex nature of Dublin's criminal underworld. Even before the Kinahan-Hutch feud, Brannigan's neighborhood was known for criminal activity, with reports of about 200 known criminals living in the small area, spawning numerous crime families. The concentration of criminal elements in this area created a breeding ground for organized crime networks. Many of these families grew up near each other, fostering connections crucial for figures like Brannigan to rise in the criminal hierarchy. For instance, Fat Freddie Thompson's mother lived in Maryland, while the Howe and Brannigan families also called Dublin 8 home. Two key factors propelled individuals like Brannigan to prominence. First, the surge in cocaine use in Ireland created a huge demand for drugs, offering immense profit potential. Second, the expansion of their networks globally gave them access to drug importers, allowing them to become effective wholesalers for various gangs, particularly in West Dublin. Family ties also linked many of these criminals to influential figures in the broader underworld. One such connection was to Thomas "Bomber" Kavanagh, who became the Kinahan cartel's head of operations in the UK. These family and neighborhood connections created a tight-knit criminal network that proved challenging for law enforcement to penetrate. Brannigan's ascent to his new position within the Kinahan cartel demonstrates the enduring influence of these local connections and the adaptability of criminal organizations in the face of law enforcement efforts. Liam Brannigan's rise to prominence in the Kinahan cartel was complex. As a cousin of cartel figures Fat Freddie Thompson and Liam Byrne, he was already deeply embedded in Dublin's criminal world. His involvement in the long-running Crumlin-Drimnagh feud since 2001 further solidified his position. Unexpectedly, amidst gang warfare, Brannigan pursued higher education. He enrolled at UCD, completing a one-year access program and making progress in archaeology and history. This suggests a complexity to his character and perhaps a desire to escape crime. However, the underworld's pull proved too strong. Despite completing 2/3 of his studies, Brannigan abandoned academics to focus on his full-time position with the Kinahan cartel. This shift from aspiring student to one of the gang's main Dublin operatives marked a critical point in his criminal career. Brannigan's family history provides context to his involvement in organized crime. His father, John Barney Brannigan, was known to law enforcement, struggled with addiction, and served time for drug offenses. He died in prison while serving an 11-year sentence for a heroin distribution plot. This family connection to the drug trade was evident in Liam's early legal troubles. In 2008, guards found cocaine worth $700 in his South Inner City home. In a telling move, Brannigan tried to blame his drug-addicted father, who was willing to take responsibility. However, this ploy failed, and Brannigan received a suspended sentence for possession. Brannigan's journey from a crime-ridden background through attempted education to a high-ranking position in the Kinahan cartel illustrates the complex forces shaping Dublin's criminal landscape. Brannigan's involvement in the attempted murder of Gary Hanley in November 2017 marked a significant escalation in his criminal activities. Hanley, associated with the rival Hutch Group, was targeted by the Kinahan Cartel as part of their ongoing feud. Brannigan was a key member of a five-man Kinahan hit squad, orchestrating the attempt alongside his close associate Dean Howe. Despite the seriousness of their mission, the hit team displayed a surprising lack of professionalism. Over several months, they often slacked off, sleeping in and getting drunk instead of focusing on their task. This carelessness gave the Garda National Drugs and Organised Crime Bureau ample time to monitor their activities closely. Law enforcement's vigilance paid off when they intercepted the hit team just 500 yards from Hanley's home. Armed Garda officers stopped a Volkswagen Caddy containing Joseph Kelly and Luke Wilson, who had a loaded semi-automatic pistol, silencer, and ammunition. These had been collected from a cyclist at a Lidl car park in Glasnevin moments before. Brannigan was arrested near his home in Hanover Court. The investigation revealed he was the only squad member in direct contact with Kinahan leadership in Dubai, using an encrypted phone. This detail underscores Brannigan's elevated status within the cartel. The thoroughness of the Garda's surveillance operation became apparent during legal proceedings. Despite the cartel's meticulous planning, law enforcement built a compelling case against the hit team. The Special Criminal Court found Brannigan guilty of being central to the conspiracy to kill Hanley, sentencing him to 8 years in prison in 2020. Before his conviction for the Hanley murder plot, Liam Brannigan maintained a low profile despite being a top lieutenant in Daniel Kinahan's drug gang. His association with the cartel's leadership was evident in his attendance at Daniel's boxing events. This proximity, along with his skills and connections, positioned Brannigan as a rising star. Ireland's organised crime landscape has shifted due to pressure on the Kinahan cartel since 2016. A family gang has been identified as Ireland's primary drug suppliers, filling the void left by the Kinahan organisation. However, the cartel aims to rebuild its presence. The release of members like Brannigan, who served their sentences without cooperating with authorities, has provided the cartel with loyal operatives. Brannigan's release in 2023 marked a turning point. With his acumen and network, Brannigan emerged as a candidate to assume a key role in the cartel's Irish operations, potentially leading efforts to regain influence. Intelligence suggests Liam Brannigan has become the Kinahan cartel's new leading figure in Ireland. This follows changes in the organisation and Dublin's criminal landscape. Ross Browning, previously the cartel's main Dublin operative, has stepped back, likely due to increased scrutiny from the Criminal Assets Bureau. Brannigan's elevation was also facilitated by his cousin Liam Byrne's extradition to the UK on firearms charges. Byrne's arrest in Mallorca created a power vacuum that Brannigan is filling. In his new role, Brannigan leads the cartel's efforts to maintain and expand operations in Ireland. His knowledge of the local criminal scene and loyalty to the organisation make him well suited to navigate the cartel's challenges in its home territory. As Brannigan takes control of the Kinahan cartel's Irish operations, the future of organised crime in the country remains uncertain. Ongoing pressure from law enforcement poses significant challenges. The Kinahan leadership in Dubai struggles to maintain control while avoiding extradition, while their rivals, the Hutch Group, seem to be adopting a more cautious approach. Law enforcement will likely continue efforts to dismantle the Kinahan cartel's operations. The success of these efforts will depend on figures like Brannigan adapting to the changing landscape and evading capture. The rise of individuals like Brannigan highlights the complex nature of criminal enterprises. The Kinahan cartel saga continues to captivate public attention globally. The resilience of such groups serves as a reminder of the ongoing challenges in fighting organized crime It remains to be seen whether Brannigan will rebuild the cartel's power in Ireland, or if law enforcement will finally bring down this notorious organization. The outcome will shape Ireland's criminal underworld for years to come. On a fateful July day in 2009, Anthony Kinahan, a 26-year-old involved in Dublin's criminal underworld, ventured into Ballyfermot for what he believed was a pre-arranged meeting. Kinahan, a key figure in Brian Rattigan's gang, was already implicated in violent acts against rival groups, including a vicious attack on the home of opposing gang leader, Fat Freddie Thompson. Kinahan's notorious reputation and involvement in numerous firearm incidents, such as drive-by shootings targeting rivals' family homes, had made him a marked man. Living under constant threat, he had received official warnings about the danger to his life. On this particular day, while out on bail for assault charges, he took the precaution of wearing body armor. As Kinahan drove through Ballyfermot, he suddenly noticed two individuals on a motorcycle rapidly approaching, one visibly armed. Realizing the imminent threat, he abandoned his vehicle and made a desperate dash towards Longmeadows Park. In a frantic attempt to escape, he tried to vault over the park's railings, but the masked assailant closed in with deadly accuracy. The attacker opened fire, unleashing a barrage of 11 shots. 2 bullets struck Kinahan in the head, causing him to collapse instantly. The gunman continued his merciless assault as Kinahan lay motionless. Bystanders, including children, watched in horror as the gruesome scene unfolded. One courageous individual approached to assist, only to discover the extent of Kinahan's fatal injuries. The assailants swiftly fled on their motorcycle, disappearing into the urban landscape. This incident marked the 17th gang-related homicide that year, leaving the community shaken and highlighting the ongoing violence plaguing the city's criminal landscape. In the aftermath of Anthony Kinahan's shocking murder, law enforcement quickly focused their investigation on Keith Wilson. Keith and his brothers, Eric and John, would soon become infamous figures in Ireland's criminal landscape. The Wilson brothers grew up on Crumlin Road in Ballyfermot, initially cherished by their mother Kathleen. However, their lives took a sinister turn at an early age. While still in their teens, the brothers began attracting police attention. It's believed that John, the oldest, initially led his younger siblings towards criminal activities, but Eric and Keith soon surpassed him in notoriety. Eric, nicknamed Lucky, gained a particularly fearsome reputation as one of Ireland's most active underworld assassins. Keith closely followed his brother's path into violent crime. The Wilson brothers' rise to infamy cast a dark cloud over their childhood neighborhood of Ballyfermot, transforming it from a place of youthful memories to one associated with their violent legacy. When the decision was made to eliminate Anthony Kinahan, Eric Wilson was abroad in Spain. Despite the distance, he masterminded the operation, recruiting his younger brother Keith to carry out the deadly mission. In the crucial moments before the attack, Eric provided Keith with precise instructions via phone, meticulously planning every detail. This assassination was believed to be Keith's first murder, marking a grim turning point in his criminal career. Tragically, it would not be his last foray into lethal violence. Though Keith never faced legal consequences for the Kinahan incident, this act of violence set him on an irreversible course towards notoriety. Roughly a year later, Keith would commit what would prove to be a fateful error, taking the life of another criminal figure in Finglas. In August 2010, Daniel Gaynor, a volatile hitman associated with the real IRA, was walking along St. Helens Road in Finglas with his partner and 2 children. Unbeknownst to them, danger was imminent. Without warning, an assailant appeared and opened fire in broad daylight. A single shot to Gaynor's neck abruptly ended their family outing and his life. Law enforcement quickly arrived at the scene, discovering not only the murder weapon but also a wealth of evidence left behind. Given Gaynor's violent history, investigators were faced with a complex web of potential motives and suspects. However, the perpetrator's carelessness provided crucial leads. Items left at the scene included gloves, headwear, outerwear, and a Sturm Ruger SP-101 firearm. These abandoned articles yielded DNA evidence, offering investigators a promising avenue for identification. 3 months later, on November 7, 2010, authorities arrested their primary suspect, Keith Wilson. Known for his underworld connections, Wilson had allegedly been contracted for this cold-blooded act. However, his lack of experience in such operations led to his downfall, as he left behind vital evidence at the crime scene. Following the incident, Wilson sought sanctuary in Spain, a familiar retreat for him and his brother Eric. Although he managed to avoid capture initially, his respite was short-lived. Months later, authorities received intelligence that Wilson was planning to return to Dublin. A carefully orchestrated operation involving numerous armed detectives resulted in Wilson's arrest at Dublin Airport. Wilson, however, refused to provide DNA samples voluntarily. This prompted Detective Colm Fox, a renowned investigator who passed away in 2018, to devise an ingenious alternative. Fox had the exercise yard meticulously cleaned, photographed, and recorded before allowing Wilson access. During the extensive interrogation process, which involved 10 separate interviews, Wilson was given a break for exercise. Afterward, 3 discarded cigarette butts were collected and sent for laboratory analysis. The results revealed that all 3 samples matched the DNA found on the gun, glove, cap, and hoodie from the crime scene. This case marked one of the earliest instances where law enforcement employed the tactic of obtaining DNA from a suspect's discarded items. Throughout his interactions with the authorities, Wilson maintained his innocence, claiming he had been working for a removal company on Spain's Costa del Sol for the past 4 months. While in custody, Wilson received a warning from his brother John to remain silent. Heeding this advice, Wilson consistently responded with no comment when presented with items from the crime scene and informed of the DNA match. He was also shown CCTV footage of himself smoking and informed that additional items he had used in custody, such as a toothbrush and towel, would undergo DNA testing. During the investigation, authorities probed Wilson about his connection to Sean Hunt, a notorious Ballyfermot smuggler. Investigators suspected Hunt had ordered the hit in retaliation for the death of Colm "Collie" Owens. Hunt, an influential criminal figure who died on Christmas Eve 2019, was believed to have mentored the Wilson brothers, molding them into ruthless operatives. Hunt had been embroiled in a conflict with a North Dublin Real IRA faction led by Alan Ryan, who was later killed in Clongriffin in 2012. The feud escalated when Ryan's group orchestrated Owens's murder at his workplace in Finglas. Owens was targeted due to his associations with the Ballyfermot criminal network, which included Hunt, Mark Guinea Pig Desmond, and the Wilsons. It's thought that Hunt, Owens's employer, held Gaynor responsible for Owens' death. Enraged by this killing, the Ballyfermot group allegedly decided Gaynor must be eliminated and enlisted the Wilson brothers for the task. Records show that Keith arrived in Dublin from Malaga just 5 days before the incident, flying on flight E185 at a cost of $250. He then returned to Spain on August 18th via Ryanair, paying $88.47. Both flights were booked under an alias, Nicholas Johnston, using a Visa card. After returning to Spain, Keith quickly became the prime suspect, but maintained a low profile until deciding to return to Ireland, where he was promptly arrested upon arrival. When asked to provide a DNA sample, Keith staunchly refused, stating, "Not a chance." Despite his non-cooperation with law enforcement, the overwhelming evidence led to his conviction, resulting in a life sentence. After his sentencing, Keith was said to harbor a desire for retribution over the killing of his eldest brother John, who had been fatally shot in September 2012. The Wilson brothers had gained notoriety as contract killers within Dublin's criminal circles. Among the 3 siblings involved in this illicit trade, while Keith may not have commanded the same level of fear as Eric, he had accumulated a significant criminal record prior to Gaynor's murder. This record included 9 convictions, mostly for driving-related offenses, but also encompassed property damage, making threats, and disorderly conduct. Keith's life sentence coincided with a similar fate for his brother Eric, who was serving a life term in Spain for the brutal killing of British criminal Dan Smith in 2010. This turn of events meant the two Wilson brothers were now serving life sentences, while the third, John, had met a violent end. The Wilson family, including Keith and Eric, along with their cousin Alan and nephew Luke, cemented their infamous reputation as Ireland's preeminent clan of contract killers. This series of events underscored the depth of the Wilson family's involvement in organized crime and the severe consequences that ultimately befell them. Their story serves as a stark illustration of the destructive cycle of violence and retribution that often characterizes the criminal underworld. Alan Wilson, a name that has become synonymous with Ireland's criminal underworld, has carved a notorious path through the country's illicit activities. Known for his volatile temperament and earning the moniker the Madman, Wilson's criminal career spans over a decade, involving a range of serious offenses that have repeatedly brought him into conflict with the law. Wilson's entry into the world of organized crime is shrouded in mystery, but he quickly gained a reputation for his willingness to engage in violent acts. His association with the Kinahan Cartel, one of Ireland's most prominent criminal organizations, placed him at the center of several high-profile incidents. The nephew of Martin the General Cahill, another infamous Irish criminal, Wilson seemed destined for a life on the wrong side of the law. His familial connections in the criminal world likely provided him with early opportunities and connections that he would later leverage in his illicit activities. Wilson's name became particularly prominent during the Kinahan-Hutch feud, a violent conflict that erupted between two rival criminal organizations in Dublin. This feud, which began in 2015, has claimed numerous lives and brought unprecedented levels of gang violence to the streets of Ireland's capital. During this period, Wilson was allegedly involved in several high-profile incidents, demonstrating the brutal nature of the ongoing gang war. One particularly chilling allegation suggests that Wilson once threatened to shoot a baby during the height of the feud, an act that, if true, underscores the extreme brutality that characterized this conflict. One of Wilson's most significant legal cases stemmed from a shooting outside the Players' Lounge pub in Fairview, Dublin, in July 2010. The incident resulted in 3 innocent bystanders being shot and seriously injured, with 2 of the victims sustaining permanent injuries and 1 suffering severe brain damage. Although not initially charged, Wilson was later implicated in this crime. The breakthrough came during the investigation of a separate case in 2017, where Wilson was recorded boasting about his involvement in the Players' Lounge shooting. He was overheard telling an associate, "I had done that job," when referring to the 2010 gun attack. In 2019, Wilson was brought to court for his role in the Players' Lounge shooting. He pleaded guilty to conspiracy to murder and firearms offenses, admitting to procuring weapons and vehicles used in the attack. Wilson claimed he was acting under orders from a dissident Republican group led by the late IRA member, Sean, the Smuggler, Hunt. The court sentenced him to 10 years imprisonment for his involvement in this conspiracy. The charges of attempted murder of the 3 men were dropped as part of the plea agreement. This case highlighted the often indiscriminate nature of gang violence, with innocent bystanders becoming unintended victims of criminal feuds. In 2017, Wilson became entangled in another serious criminal case that would ultimately lead to his downfall. He was charged with conspiring to murder Gary Hanley, an associate of the Hutch family. This plot was part of the ongoing Kinahan-Hutch feud, demonstrating Wilson's continued involvement in gang-related activities. Law enforcement had been monitoring Wilson and his co-conspirators, gathering substantial evidence of their plans. The authorities had secretly bugged Wilson's car, recording crucial conversations that would later be used as evidence against him. The plot was foiled when armed officers intercepted a Volkswagen Caddy van just 500 yards from Hanley's home on the night of the planned attack. 2 of Wilson's associates, Joseph Kelly and Luke Wilson, Alan's cousin, were found with a loaded semi-automatic pistol, caught in the act of attempting to carry out the hit. Wilson was recorded giving detailed instructions about destroying vehicles and discussing methods for carrying out the murder. This evidence played a crucial role in his conviction. He received a 6-year prison sentence for his part in this conspiracy, backdated to November 2017, when he was taken into custody. One of the most high-profile cases involving Wilson was his trial for the murder of Marioara Rostas, an 18-year-old Romanian woman who disappeared from Dublin city centre in January 2008. The young woman had been begging on the street when she was last seen getting into a car. Rostas made a panicked phone call to her brother the day after her disappearance, saying she was being held against her will and sexually assaulted. She was never heard from again. 4 years later, in 2012, her body was discovered in a shallow grave in Kipure Forest, County Wicklow. She had been shot 4 times in the head. The case against Wilson relied heavily on testimony from a protected witness, his former associate Fergus O'Hanlon. O'Hanlon provided a harrowing account of Rostas' final days. However, after a 5-week trial in 2014, Wilson was found not guilty. The judge had instructed the jury to be cautious about convicting based on uncorroborated evidence from a witness who had received benefits from the Witness Protection Program. This case highlighted the challenges faced by prosecutors in securing convictions in complex criminal cases, particularly those involving organized crime where witnesses may be reluctant to come forward or may have questionable motives. In June 2009, Wilson and an accomplice, David Crowley, were involved in a violent home invasion in Blanchardstown. They attacked a man named David O'Brien with a meat cleaver. Despite both men pleading not guilty and complications with witness testimony, they were convicted in 2013. The case faced several challenges, including the fact that the victim, O'Brien, did not give evidence as he never made a statement to the guards. Additionally, other potential witnesses, including the victim's former partner, Lisa Murray, and her father, were treated as hostile witnesses after denying sworn statements in which they had identified the attackers. Despite these obstacles, Wilson received a 7-year sentence for this crime, while Crowley was sentenced to 8 years. However, Wilson later won an appeal against this conviction on technical grounds related to the specific offence he was charged with versus what he was questioned about. The Supreme Court allowed for a retrial, but the Director of Public Prosecutions decided not to pursue it, as Wilson had already served most of his sentence with remission. Wilson has been linked to other unsolved crimes throughout his career. He was previously arrested and questioned about the murder of 22-year-old Darren Cogan, who was shot and fatally wounded in a pub in Inchicore on June 25, 2011. Guards believed the murder was a case of mistaken identity. Although Wilson was questioned, he was never charged, and the case remains unsolved. Since his incarceration in 2017, Wilson's time in prison has been marked by conflicts and security concerns. He has claimed that his former associates in the Kinahan cartel have placed a substantial bounty on his head, allegedly offering €100,000 for his murder and €20,000 for a serious assault. Wilson's status as a high-profile and at-risk inmate has led to several transfers between prisons. He was initially held in Mountjoy Prison, but was moved to Midlands Prison after being attacked by other inmates in June 2019. This attack left him with a broken nose and facial lacerations. In 2022, Wilson took legal action against the Irish Prison Service, claiming they failed to protect him from the Kinahan cartel while in custody. This lawsuit highlights the challenges faced by prison authorities in managing high-risk inmates with complex histories of gang affiliations. Wilson's paranoia and volatility have also led to conflicts with prison staff. Reports indicate that he has faced disciplinary sanctions on multiple occasions, primarily for making threats against jail personnel. His behavior behind bars has been described as erratic and threatening, making him a challenging inmate to manage. More recently, Wilson was transferred to the high-security Portlaoise prison following an assault on officers. The incident allegedly occurred when Wilson, known for his unstable behavior, failed to recognize a new group of staff assigned to manage him. This event underscores the ongoing security concerns surrounding Wilson and the resources required to safely incarcerate high-profile gang members.
In the expansive realm of the sports world, the former Liverpool captain, Steven Gerrard, stands out as a legendary figure among footballers, leaving a legacy that transcends international borders. He has long been celebrated as one of the most outstanding players of his generation. However, it appears that even this shining star has been clouded by controversy, as Gerrard's illustrious name has now become entangled in the ominous world of organized crime. Rumors and allegations are circulating, hinting at a possible connection between Gerrard and the notorious Kinahan Cartel, a criminal empire that has cast its malevolent influence across Ireland. In this video, we will delve deep into the heart of these shocking claims, peeling back the layers of speculation to uncover the truth. Steven Gerrard, a former professional footballer hailing from England, is primarily celebrated for his remarkable achievements as one of the most accomplished midfielders of his generation. He dedicated the majority of his career to Liverpool, where he spent 17 years, leaving an indelible mark on the club's history. During his tenure at Liverpool, Gerrard's remarkable contributions led to 9 championships, including the prestigious UEFA Champions League, 2 FA Cups, and 3 League Cups. In addition to his club successes, Gerrard also made a name for himself on the international stage, representing the English national team with distinction. He made his international debut in 2000 and went on to earn over 100 caps, serving as a pivotal figure in midfield for his country. Following his retirement as a player, Gerrard transitioned into coaching. He took charge of Liverpool's youth teams, showcasing his commitment to nurturing young talent. In 2018, he achieved another milestone in his career by being appointed as the manager of the Scottish club Rangers FC. 3 years later, he assumed the role of manager at Aston Villa, but his tenure was cut short as he was relieved of his duties after nearly a year in charge. Despite being widely regarded as a sporting legend, Steven Gerrard's name has recently surfaced in connection with veteran criminal James "Jaws" Byrne and Kinahan foot soldier Nathan "Biggie" Little. James Byrne is the patriarch of the infamous Byrne family from Crumlin, known for their deep-rooted involvement in criminal activities. He and his wife Sadie Rowe have 6 children, including Liam and David Byrne. Liam Byrne in particular is considered one of Ireland's most influential criminals, serving as the leader of a criminal organization known as the Byrne Organised Crime Group. This Dublin-based syndicate is a partner of Ireland's most notorious criminal organization, the Kinahan Cartel. Liam Byrne, heavily involved in the realms of gun and drug trafficking, recently faced extradition to the UK due to gun-related crimes. Within the criminal world, he has earned the trust of the Kinahans and is believed to have held significant influence in Irish gangland for the past decade. Tragically, Liam's younger brother David was also deeply embroiled in organized crime and met his demise during the Regency Hotel attack in February 2016. This violent incident is widely considered a retaliatory strike orchestrated by the Hutch family after the killing of Gary Hutch in Spain in 2015. It marked the commencement of a bitter feud between the Kinahans and the Hutch family, with Liam being a prominent figure aligned with the Kinahans, notably standing alongside Daniel Kinahan. Liam's criminal journey traces back to his teenage years when he was involved in street-level drug dealings. During this time, his gang was supplied by Daniel's father, Christy Kinahan, who was emerging as a drug dealer. The Byrne organization ascended to prominence in Ireland's underworld and became an integral part of the Kinahan cartel's operations, just as the Kinahans themselves were making a name as global players in the realm of organized crime. As his brother met a tragic end and the Criminal Assets Bureau intensified its pursuit, the Byrnes continued to serve as a trusted arm for the Kinahans in Dublin. In 2019, Liam Byrne chose to flee Ireland, seeking refuge in the UK. In the United Kingdom, his brother-in-law Thomas "Bomber" Kavanagh held a prominent role as the head of the Kinahan cartel's UK division. It is widely believed that Liam assumed this position after Bomber's incarceration. The Byrne family boasts a long-standing history of involvement in Dublin's criminal underworld. Their father, James Byrne, once associated with Irish crime boss Martin the General Cahill, a former gang leader renowned for orchestrating a series of burglaries and armed robberies. However, Cahill met his demise when he was fatally shot in 1994. Jaws gained notoriety for his deep involvement in fraudulent activities and counterfeiting, drawing the attention of the Criminal Assets Bureau, SABI, and the Revenue Service around the turn of the century. Subsequently, he agreed to settle for hundreds of thousands of euros in response to CAB's investigations. In a peculiar turn of events, Jaws found himself in a legal dispute. In 2017, he initiated a high court application to reclaim a Rolex Oyster perpetual watch valued at €35,000. On a related note, his wife Sadie, who was also the mother of the late David, denied the cab's claims that an Audemars Pigeon Royal Oak watch and a Lexus Jeep were obtained through criminal means. The watch in question had originally belonged to her deceased son David and was estimated to be worth €12,500. Sadie Byrne, formerly known as Sadie Rowe, hails from the Rowe family, a family with significant ties to some of Dublin's most prominent organized crime groups. These connections, including figures like Fat Freddie Thompson and Liam Rowe, proved to be advantageous for their son Liam, as he ascended to become a major player in Ireland's criminal underworld. Now, Stephen Gerrard has been recently spotted in the company of the Byrnes. According to sources, Gerrard spent time with James Byrne and his family after the former Rangers manager's visit to Dublin for a few days. During his visit, Gerrard made a stop at the Black Forge Inn, owned by UFC star Conor McGregor on St. Patrick's Day. The 42-year-old former football star visited McGregor's bar, although the famous proprietor was not present to partake in the celebrations. Furthermore, Gerrard has been photographed posing alongside Kinahan cartel foot soldier Nathan Biggie Little during a night out, joined by Liam's son, Lee, and Gerrard's daughter, Lily Ella. Gerrard shared these pictures on his Instagram with the football legend seen alongside Little and captioning the post with "All Day Lad." Nathan Little, a 24-year-old resident of Dublin's Crumlin area, is known to be a low-level member of the Byrne Organised Crime Group and serves as a foot soldier for the Kinahans. He shares a close friendship with Liam's son Lee and has been prominently featured in several photos alongside Liam Byrne himself. Meanwhile, as the Kinahans continue their efforts to evade capture and prosecution by moving across various countries, Liam Byrne seems to be effortlessly mingling with prominent figures from the world of sports. This is reminiscent of Daniel Kinahan's earlier attempts to rebuild his image through the sport of boxing. Another interesting connection arises from Gerrard's 19-year-old daughter, who is an Instagram sensation with a massive fan base. She is currently in a relationship with Liam Byrne's son Lee. The couple has been together since April 2022 and even celebrated the New Year in Dubai with Lily's family, which included her renowned father, the football legend. However, it's essential to note that both Lee and Lily Ella are not believed to be involved in organized crime. Nevertheless, the entire situation has fueled speculations about Gerrard's associations with the Byrnes and the Kinahans, particularly given the recent footage of Gerrard in the company of Liam Byrne, who has been explicitly identified as the leader of the Byrne criminal gang by the High Court. During this particular interaction, Gerrard had a conversation with Byrne, during which they recorded a video message for one of Gerrard's fans. In the video, Gerrard initially extended an invitation to the fan to attend a football match. Subsequently, Byrne suggested that the fan select a date and even offered to bring him to Dublin for a dinner at his own residence, which would also involve Gerrard. Recent developments and encounters like this have understandably raised suspicions and led to allegations regarding Gerrard's potential ties to organized crime. However, it's important to emphasize that at this point, there is no concrete evidence to establish that Gerrard is fully aware of the intricacies of the Byrne family's activities.
In the early hours of a frigid January morning in 2019, Graham Whelan, an infamous figure in Ireland's criminal underworld, was rudely awakened from his slumber in a lavish penthouse suite at Dublin's Intercontinental Hotel. Whelan, known by his street moniker, The Wig, had been indulging in a luxurious three-night stay, shelling out over €2,100 for the privilege of occupying room 342, complete with its own outdoor living space. Unbeknownst to Whelan, his opulent respite was about to come to an abrupt end. Law enforcement officers burst into his suite, catching him off guard amidst a collection of illegal substances, cocaine and cannabis, along with some high-value items. A €28,000 Audemars Piguet Royal Oak timepiece and €1,275 in cash. When confronted by the authorities, Whelan's response was as brazen as it was crude. He quipped that the money had been retrieved from an intimate bodily location, colloquially referred to as his Swiss roll, and told the officers they were welcome to keep it. In a display of bravado, he went on to proclaim his dangerous criminal status, even pointing out one of the officers present, claiming, "Ask that fella there, he locked me up." a clear reference to a previous encounter with law enforcement. Whelan's notoriety in Ireland's criminal landscape stretches back many years. He's long been associated with the Byrne Organised Crime Syndicate and is considered a high-ranking member of the infamous Kinahan Cartel. His close ties to other notorious figures such as Thomas Bomber Kavanagh, Fat Freddie Thompson, and the late David Byrne have cemented his position as a major player in Ireland's underworld. Despite his criminal past, Whelan now asserts that he's turned over a new leaf, adding an intriguing twist to his story. He seems to be in a relationship with the sister of renowned MMA fighter Conor McGregor. Originating from Clonard Road in Crumlin, Whelan earned his peculiar nickname, the Wig, due to a distinctive haircut he sported in his teenage years. For over 2 decades, he's been a central figure in organised crime. However, recent years have brought significant personal tragedies. In 2020, Whelan's wife passed away, leaving him to care for their 4 young children. The following year, he suffered another blow when his close associate and fellow Kinahan cartel member, Philip Griffiths, took his own life. Whelan's criminal career began in earnest back in March 2000. At the tender age of 17, he was caught up in a major drug bust at a Dublin hotel. Law enforcement uncovered a substantial drug operation, seizing €1.6 million worth of ecstasy and cocaine. Whelan, along with Griffiths and another young man named Declan Gavin, were arrested in the midst of processing the drugs. During his arrest, the young Whelan displayed a cocky attitude, boasting to the guards that he could easily handle a decade-long prison sentence. In the aftermath of the bust, only Gavin was released without charges, sparking suspicions within their criminal circle about his loyalty and potential cooperation with authorities. This incident marked the beginning of the infamous Crumlin-Drimnagh feud, which split the gang into 2 rival factions, one led by Fat Freddie Thompson and the other by Brian Rattigan. Tragically, Gavin, who was closely associated with Thompson, was fatally stabbed just days before his trial related to the hotel bust was set to begin. Despite their youth, both Griffiths and Whelan received substantial prison sentences. Whelan, who remained loyal to Thompson's faction, was handed a 6-year term. Upon their release in the mid-2000s, both men continued their involvement in organised crime. Whelan fostered close relationships with David Byrne and Freddie Thompson, who had by then become major figures in Ireland's criminal landscape. In 2007, Whelan and Byrne found themselves in police custody in connection with the 2006 murder of hitman Gary Bryan, a killing linked to the ongoing feud. Bryan had been involved in the shooting of Paul Warren in 2004, which was attributed to the Rattigan faction. In retaliation, Bryan was gunned down by Thompson's group. Whelan had been observed driving past the house of Bryan's mother-in-law shortly before the shooting occurred. Bryan had intended to leave the area, but was fatally shot before he could make his escape. Investigators uncovered a connection between a mobile phone registered to a relative of Byrne and Whelan, showing frequent communication between the two on the day of Bryan's murder. While in custody, Byrne attempted to pass newspapers to Whelan through the guards. Upon inspection, authorities discovered a note from Byrne warning, "Loose lips sink ships." Despite their arrest, both men were eventually released without charges. Byrne would later meet a violent end during the notorious Regency Hotel attack in 2016. As the years passed, Whelan continued to climb the ranks of the criminal underworld. He played a significant role in managing the cartel's drug distribution network in South Dublin and collaborated with criminal groups across Ireland, including gangs in Limerick. His rising prominence made him a target for law enforcement under anti-gang legislation, introduced over a decade ago. Authorities compiled a comprehensive file on Whelan, intending to present it to the Director of Public Prosecutions in hopes of bringing charges against him under the new legislation. This action was prompted by the arrest of one of Whelan's associates, who was caught carrying cash in 2009. A subsequent raid uncovered a list detailing names and amounts paid, with numerous references to Whelan's alias, the Wig. However, the DPP ultimately decided not to press charges. Feeling the heat from law enforcement, Whelan relocated to the UK in 2011. There, he aligned himself with Thomas "Bomber" Kavanagh, a senior figure in the Kinahan cartel and brother-in-law to David and Liam Byrne. Kavanagh had left Ireland years earlier and had risen to become the head of the Kinahan cartel's UK operations. Following his move to the UK, Whelan took charge of significant drug operations spanning Europe, Ireland, and Britain. He frequently travelled to Spain and the Netherlands during this period. In 2016, Whelan was involved in a violent altercation in Spain, resulting in a conviction for grievous bodily harm. He received a 2-year suspended sentence for this offence. Despite his relocation, Whelan made regular trips back to Ireland in the years leading up to his most recent incarceration. He was suspected of overseeing the cartel's drug operations in the country during these visits. In November 2021, Whelan was sentenced to prison for the Intercontinental hotel room incident. He received a 3-year sentence, with the final 18 months suspended for money laundering offences, including possession of the €28,000 watch. In the wake of Whelan's 2019 hotel arrest, law enforcement agencies conducted a major operation targeting nearly 20 homes and businesses linked to him. During these searches, documents were discovered suggesting Whelan owned property in the UK, with records indicating ongoing mortgage payments being transferred to a vulture fund. This investigation resulted in the state seizing €75,000 from Whelan, which was deemed to be proceeds of criminal activities. It was later revealed that at the time of his arrest, Whelan had been in possession of a drug-related debt list and an EncroChat phone. This discovery occurred 18 months before Dutch and French authorities successfully hacked the EncroChat network, leading to widespread arrests across Europe. In July 2021, Whelan entered a guilty plea to charges of participating in the operations of an organised crime gang through money laundering activities. He also admitted to possessing over €1,200 in cash and the Audemars Piguet watch, both of which were obtained through criminal means. Furthermore, Whelan confessed to spending €2,140 on the luxurious 3-night hotel stay, knowing or believing that the funds used were proceeds of criminal activities. During his time behind bars, Whelan received several visits from Aoife McGregor, sister of the famous MMA fighter Conor McGregor. The two had developed a close friendship following the breakdown of F's marriage. Whelan was released from Mountjoy Prison in December 2022, and the pair continued to see each other after his release. Whelan's connection to the McGregor family extends beyond his relationship with Aoife McGregor. He had previously been photographed with Conor McGregor on multiple occasions and was even seen playing for McGregor's football team, the Black Forge, in October 2021. As Whelan now faces an uncertain future, questions arise about whether he will make good on his claims of reformation or if he will revert to his criminal past. His story serves as a stark reminder of the complex and often violent world of organised crime in Ireland and the far-reaching consequences it has on individuals, families, and society at large. Whelan's journey from a teenage drug dealer to a high-ranking member of one of Ireland's most notorious criminal organisations illustrates the insidious nature of organised crime. It shows how early involvement in criminal activities can lead to a lifetime entrenched in the underworld, with severe personal and societal costs. The repeated interventions by law enforcement, while sometimes successful in securing convictions, seem to have had limited impact on Whelan's overall trajectory within the criminal world. This raises questions about the effectiveness of current strategies in combating organised crime, and the challenges faced by authorities in dismantling these powerful criminal networks. Whelan's story also highlights the personal toll of a life in crime. The loss of his wife and the suicide of his close associate Griffiths underscore the human cost of involvement in criminal activities. These personal tragedies, coupled with his responsibilities as a single father to 4 young children, may have contributed to his claimed desire for change. The intersection of Whelan's criminal world with the celebrity sphere, as evidenced by his connection to the McGregor family, adds another layer of complexity to his story. It demonstrates how the boundaries between the underworld and mainstream society can sometimes blur, creating unexpected and potentially problematic associations. As Whelan navigates his post-prison life, his story serves as a cautionary tale about the long-term consequences of criminal involvement and the challenges of breaking free from a deeply entrenched criminal lifestyle. Whether he will successfully reform himself or be drawn back into his old ways remains to be seen, but his story continues to captivate public interest and shine a light on the ongoing issues of organized crime in Ireland.
Dubai, renowned for its opulent lifestyle and towering skyscrapers, has garnered attention as a perceived sanctuary for criminals, drawing the focus of law enforcement agencies globally. Noteworthy among those seeking refuge in this glamorous metropolis is Sean McGovern, recognized as the right-hand man of Daniel Kinahan, a key figure in the infamous Kinahan cartel. While there is widespread curiosity about why Daniel Kinahan, a notorious drug lord, remains free, a more pressing question emerges regarding the continued freedom of his trusted lieutenant Sean McGovern, also known as Macker. Unlike Kinahan, whose potential charges in Ireland are still uncertain despite being wanted and files being prepared, the situation for McGovern is unequivocal. A European arrest warrant was issued over a year ago in April 2022. This video will delve into the specifics of Sean McGovern's, or Macker's, criminal record and his current status as a fugitive. How is it conceivable that McGovern continues to lead a life of freedom and luxury? To truly comprehend the severity of this situation, we must explore McGovern's background and his affiliation with the Kinahan cartel. Originally hailing from the Crumlin area, McGovern was once a pivotal figure in the Byrne Organized Crime Group, maintaining a close relationship with its leader, Byrne. The U.S. government has officially labeled McGovern as an international drug baron, attributing to him the responsibility of orchestrating the large-scale movement of cocaine in recent times. Notably, he has ascended to the position of Daniel Kinahan's right-hand man. McGovern's enduring connection with Anita Freeman, also from Dublin, adds another layer to his complex profile. Their relationship began when Freeman was just a teenager, and McGovern held the esteemed position of the right-hand man to mobster Byrne. Freeman has consistently maintained a close connection with Kelly Quinn, the widow of the late David Byrne. David met his tragic end during the Regency Hotel attack in February 2016, a notorious incident where he was shot dead. The attack, marked by gunmen disguised as police officers, unfolded during a high-profile event attended by some of Ireland's most infamous criminal figures. The ensuing chaos and violence resulted in the death of David and injuries to 2 others. In the aftermath of the Regency attack, a pivotal moment in McGovern's criminal trajectory unfolded. While prime target Daniel Kinahan managed to evade capture, McGovern, alongside another individual, survived a gunshot during the assault. This incident solidified his alliance with Daniel Kinahan, marking a turning point in McGovern's criminal career. Subsequently, he took on significant responsibilities, including recruiting hit teams, managing their finances, procuring weapons, and reporting directly to Daniel. Despite these ominous developments, McGovern's movements in the years that followed have raised numerous questions. His last known sighting was in Dublin during the summer of 2017, where he was seen enjoying a lavish meal with Byrne and cartel associate Liam Rowe. Having permanently resettled in Dubai, McGovern's relocation decision came in the aftermath of the December 2016 murder of Noel Duckegg Kerwin. Notably, McGovern is now a wanted figure in connection to this crime, as will be explored further in this video. Despite the issuance of a European arrest warrant in April 2022, McGovern remains at large, seemingly untouched by Dubai authorities. A notable absence was marked when McGovern failed to appear at his father's funeral in Ireland in November 2022. Surveillance teams closely monitored the port of Rosslare for any potential return of the Kinahan cartel fugitive to his homeland. Simultaneously, guards in Crumlin kept a vigilant watch on Our Lady of Good Counsel Church in Drimnog, where McGovern's father was laid to rest. Contrary to expectations, McGovern was nowhere to be found. This prompts the question: how does an individual with an extensive criminal record, accused of murder and being an international drug lord, continue to lead a life of luxury and freedom in Dubai, seemingly beyond the reach of legal authorities? Despite the issuance of a European arrest warrant in April 2022, McGovern has managed to evade apprehension in Dubai, raising questions about the lack of action by the Dubai police and the United Arab Emirates to extradite him. This has led to widespread speculation about potential corruption and bribery shielding him from justice. Dubai has, in essence, become the operational hub for the Kinahan cartel, providing them with a base to function with relative impunity. While there were initial indications of cooperation between the United Arab Emirates and European police forces, tangible efforts to apprehend cartel members, including McGovern, have been notably absent. An intriguing aspect of this narrative involves Anita Freeman, McGovern's longtime partner, who also made the move to Dubai and secured residency permits. However, reports suggest that she might have returned to Ireland, facing challenges in reclaiming her seized home on Kildare Road 219 in Crumlin. The property is linked to the Byrne Organised Crime Group's assets, which came under scrutiny from the Criminal Assets Bureau in 2018. This further adds complexity to the ongoing saga surrounding McGovern and the Kinahan cartel. Investigations have brought to light a concerning revelation regarding Freeman's involvement in criminal activities linked to the Byrne Group and the Kinahan cartel. It was uncovered that she had been making rent subsidies into Liam Byrne's bank account, further complicating her association with the criminal undertakings of the Byrne Group and the Kinahan cartel. An important detail emerged before the Criminal Assets Bureau took control of the house linked to Freeman. Prior to this transfer, the house underwent significant alterations, with fixtures and fittings, including the kitchen and bathrooms, being removed. Subsequently, the property was sold to the Dublin City Council and remained vacant for an extended period, underscoring the intricate web of transactions associated with the Kinahan cartel. Within the Kinahan cartel, Sean McGovern assumed a position of utmost significance during his residence in Dubai. He ascended to become Daniel Kinahan's most senior and trusted associate, playing a pivotal role in overseeing Kinahan's business ventures. McGovern's close ties extended beyond Kinahan to other key figures within the cartel, including Ross Browning, who has maintained an association with the organization for 2 decades. Browning, notably, shared a childhood friendship with the cartel's murder victim, Gary Hutch, adding further complexity to the intricate relationships within the criminal network. The murder of Gary Hutch in November 2015 is widely considered the catalyst for the lethal Kinahan-Hutch feud. This deadly conflict gained further gravity with the killing of Noel "Duck Egg" Kerwin in December 2016, underscoring the extent of McGovern's criminal involvement. Kerwin, a 62-year-old innocent grandfather, fell victim to a ruthless contract killing that was part of the ongoing feud. He was shot 6 times while seated in his car outside his partner's house in Clondalkin just days before Christmas. The heinous act occurred after Kerwin had dropped off his partner's daughter and granddaughter. The motivation behind Kerwin's targeting became painfully evident. He was believed to be singled out merely for appearing in a photograph alongside Jerry the Monk Hutch at the funeral of Hutch's brother, Eddie Hutch. Subsequent investigations by the Garda confirmed that Kerwin had no involvement in organized crime and had no affiliations with either side of the deadly Kinahan-Hutch feud. McGovern is alleged to have been present at the scene of Kerwin's murder, with suspicions surrounding his role, including issuing instructions to the shooter. Irish authorities have identified him as a key figure in the murder and ongoing investigations. Apart from the grave charge related to the murder of Noel Kerwin, McGovern faces even more serious charges, adding another layer of complexity to his criminal profile. McGovern's involvement is believed to be pivotal in the attempted hit on James Mago Gately in April 2017. In the Gately murder plot, McGovern played a central role in recruiting West Dublin crime boss Peter Keating to establish a support network for Estonian hitman Imre Arakas. Unfortunately for the Kinahan cartel, Arakas was unsuccessful in carrying out the assigned task. McGovern faces serious allegations, including directing the activities of an organized crime gang and actively participating in their illicit pursuits. He is accused of playing a crucial role in planning and identifying targets for the Kinahan cartel, assuming the position of Daniel Kinahan's advisor and managing communications on his behalf. Should he be formally charged and convicted, McGovern would rise to become the highest-ranking leader of the cartel to face legal consequences since the conviction of Thomas Bomber Kavanagh. This marks a significant development in the ongoing legal battles surrounding the Kinahan cartel, highlighting the potential legal jeopardy faced by McGovern for his alleged role in these criminal activities. The ramifications of McGovern's criminal involvements extend well beyond the borders of Ireland. The Kinahan transnational criminal organization is now mentioned alongside notorious entities such as Italy's Camorra, Mexico's Los Zetas, Japan's Yakuza, and Russia's thieves-in-law. U.S. authorities have also taken a keen interest in McGovern, accusing him of materially assisting, sponsoring, or providing financial support to Daniel Kinahan. McGovern found himself among the 4 individuals sanctioned by the U.S. Department of the Treasury, alongside members of the Kinahan family. These sanctions underscore the global reach and influence wielded by the Kinahan cartel and its associates. Despite this international spotlight, there is a twist in the narrative. Last year, Christy Kinahan, the patriarch of the cartel, harbored suspicions that McGovern might be a confidential informant. Christy believed that someone within their ranks was sharing highly sensitive information with authorities, particularly concerning money laundering and other illicit activities. McGovern found himself under suspicion from the cartel's patriarch, despite the Irish authorities having already issued a warrant for his arrest. This internal distrust adds an intriguing layer to the complex dynamics within the Kinahan cartel. Despite the abundance of evidence and charges against McGovern, the prospect of his extradition from Dubai remains elusive. While the European arrest warrant does not automatically apply to the United Arab Emirates, extradition can potentially be arranged on a case-by-case basis through bilateral agreements between countries. The Irish authorities, including the Garda, the Department of Justice, and the Department of Foreign Affairs, have actively pursued avenues to secure McGovern's extradition. However, the process has been marked by persistent delays and frustrations, prompting questions about the extent of the UAE's willingness to fully cooperate. The severity of the situation has prompted significant measures. A senior Garda officer has been stationed in the United Arab Emirates, specifically in Abu Dhabi, to oversee and coordinate investigations into the activities of the Kinahan cartel and other Irish crime gangs operating in the region. This marks the first instance of the Garda establishing a permanent presence in the Middle East, underscoring the gravity of the Kinahan cartel's activities and the imperative for international collaboration to bring them to justice. The complexities surrounding McGovern's extradition highlight the challenges inherent in addressing transnational criminal organizations and the necessity for robust international cooperation to counteract their influence. While there remains optimism that McGovern will eventually face extradition and legal consequences, the persistent delays and apparent inaction raise legitimate concerns. The recent case of Liam Byrne, another associate of the cartel, adds weight to the perception of Dubai as a secure haven for Irish criminals. Byrne, who resided in Dubai while facing firearms-related charges in the UK, was only apprehended in Majorca after traveling to meet with his family. The looming question persists: when and where will key Kinahan cartel member Sean McGovern be arrested to face criminal charges? The uncertainties surrounding his potential arrest and legal proceedings leave the narrative open-ended. On a tranquil September morning in 2015, amidst the warm glow of sunrise, a harrowing incident transpired within a Spanish apartment complex. Concealed within the shadows of an underground car park, an assailant, shrouded in a black balaclava, lay in ambush behind a vehicle. Patiently biding time, he awaited the return of his intended target, a routine morning jogger. Having meticulously observed his victim for days, the assassin seized the moment as soon as the individual entered his line of sight. Swiftly emerging from the concealment, he aimed his weapon, only to be thwarted by a malfunctioning firearm. Seizing this unexpected opportunity, the intended victim managed to evade immediate danger, setting off a frantic pursuit. The atmosphere crackled with tension as the two figures sprinted, their footsteps echoing across the outdoor pool area. In a cornered and desperate state, the pursued individual made a dash towards a sealed gate, desperately seeking refuge. However, there was no reprieve, and the assailant unleashed a barrage of shots. Tragically, the victim was identified as Gary Hutch, the nephew of Jerry the Monk Hutch, a notorious figure in the criminal underworld involved in illicit drug dealings. The incident marked the untimely demise of Gary Hutch on the spot. Hutch shared a common background with his assailant, an individual who, like him, sought to establish a criminal career under the sun. Once aligned with the Kinahan gang, Hutch's trajectory took a dark turn when accusations of betrayal branded him as a potential informant within the cartel's ranks. In the aftermath of a bold attack, James Quinn, known as Frizzy due to his distinctive hair, exuded confidence in having eluded the grasp of the law. He orchestrated the burning of the getaway vehicle, a pilfered BMW X3, not far from the scene of the murder. Unbeknownst to him, a vigilant neighbor witnessed the act and promptly extinguished the flames. Shortly thereafter, law enforcement capitalized on this crucial lead. The discovery of DNA traces, specifically found on a black Oakley baseball cap recovered from the torched BMW, ignited a comprehensive investigation. This inquiry triggered a series of coordinated raids and search operations spanning both Dublin and southern Spain. The subsequent year unraveled Quinn's fugitive existence when he was apprehended in Madrid while attempting to board a flight. The meticulous work of undercover police operatives included obtaining Quinn's DNA from a water bottle used at a train station in Madrid. This genetic evidence seamlessly matched the DNA recovered from the cap found at the BMW crime scene. The capture marked a significant triumph for law enforcement, exposing Quinn as an individual deeply entrenched in a life marked by crime and violence. Fast forward to 2018, and the courtroom set the stage for justice to finally apprehend James Quinn. A Spanish judge handed down a 20-year prison sentence for the murder, coupled with an additional 2 years for illegal weapons possession. Throughout the trial, Quinn consistently maintained that he was in bed with a hangover and a prostitute at the time of Hutch's killing. However, he failed to produce any evidence substantiating this alibi. Despite widespread beliefs implicating Quinn, a childhood friend of Daniel Kinahan, as the triggerman, the judge could not definitively establish his role as the shooter. Nevertheless, Quinn was deemed a necessary participant, serving as a lookout and getaway driver. The potential for a life sentence was dismissed due to the inability to prove Quinn's affiliation with the criminal organization implicated in the murder. Furthermore, the jurors ruled out any concrete evidence suggesting that Quinn received payment for the hit. The gun, leading to his conviction, was discovered in a bedside table during a search of Quinn's residence. The courtroom drama concluded with Quinn's sentencing, underscoring the complexities of establishing certain aspects of his involvement in the crime. Efforts by James Quinn's legal team to overturn his conviction faced a resounding rejection from 3 appeal judges who dismissed every aspect of the lawyer's claims, asserting his wrongful conviction. Quinn's incarceration delivered a significant blow to Daniel Kinahan and his criminal network. According to law enforcement sources, Quinn, known as Frizzy, posed a substantial threat to public safety throughout his criminal career. His gun attack on Gary Hutch initiated a violent underworld conflict famously known as the Kinahan-Hutch feud, a feud that has claimed multiple lives. Quinn's criminal history extends beyond the ordinary. He wasn't merely a foot soldier, but a key player in a perilous game. As the nephew of Martin Foley, also known as the Viper, and a former member of a gang led by Martin the General Cahill, Quinn's connections run deep within the criminal underworld. His affiliation with the Kinahan gang, one of Ireland's most notorious crime syndicates, underscores the magnitude of his influence and the inherent danger he represents. A highly skilled former kickboxer, Quinn spent a decade splitting his time between Dublin and Spain, predominantly residing near Marbella in the years leading up to his arrest. His arrest marked a turning point in the criminal saga of an individual deeply embedded in the dangerous world of organized crime. Dublin's law enforcement had issued grave warnings to James Quinn, alerting him to the imminent danger to his life. Functioning as an enforcer in the realm of drug dealing, Quinn solidified his standing through a series of violent criminal acts, amassing a reputation underscored by over 70 convictions, ranging from traffic offenses to brutal assaults. In 2008, Quinn assaulted a Garda on South Great George's Street, marking a pivotal moment in his criminal history. 2 months later, he was suspected of shooting a Dublin drug addict in the knees after the intruder had broken into a residence. Despite the severity of these incidents, the victim declined to file a complaint with the Garda, resulting in Quinn avoiding formal charges. In July 2013, Quinn faced sentencing at the Dublin Circuit Court for threatening a bouncer who had ejected him from a city center pub. The court heard details of how Quinn, rather than outright threatening the bouncer at the time of ejection, ominously warned him of impending regret. Quinn later pursued the bouncer to his residence, where, at a traffic stop, he reappeared with a hammer, shattering the bouncer's windshield. "I told you you'd be sorry, you bastard," Quinn declared, emphasizing the sinister nature of his actions. This incident further added to Quinn's notorious criminal record, painting a vivid picture of his volatile and dangerous tendencies. In the subsequent year, Gerrard Kavanagh, a 44-year-old Dubliner employed as an enforcer for the Kinahan gang, met a fatal end in a bar near Marbella. His demise was a result of an internal dispute within the Kinahan gang. Kavanagh had established a reputation as an enforcer in the Irish underworld, acting on behalf of the Kinahan cartel. His role involved coercively collecting payment for drug debts in both Ireland and Spain. Prior to this, he had a history as a drug dealer. Kavanagh's son, Jamie, was present at the infamous weigh-in at the Regency Hotel in 2016, where a shooting occurred. The internal discord within the Kinahan gang that led to Kavanagh's demise stemmed from accusations of theft and involvement in defrauding Russian gangsters. James Quinn emerged as the chief suspect in orchestrating Kavanagh's murder. Additionally, Quinn was suspected of complicity in the killing of Kavanagh's brother Paul just 6 months later. During the operation that culminated in Quinn's arrest in Madrid, Spanish law enforcement seized a yacht and a Bentley car suspected to be linked to James Quinn. Simultaneously, in Dublin, police confiscated €3,000 in cash, along with computers, phones, counterfeit identification papers, and financial documents tied to property transactions and offshore bank accounts. Following his arrest, Quinn found himself incarcerated in Arkadona Prison, a maximum security facility notorious for housing infamous criminals. Notably, this prison was the same institution where Kinahan and his sons, Daniel and Christopher Jr., had been detained after their arrests in May 2010 as part of Operation Shovel, a major police operation targeting drug trafficking and money laundering. Phone taps conducted by the Spanish police unveiled that James Quinn and Gary Hutch maintained regular contact. During these intercepted calls, Quinn and Hutch were heard discussing matters such as hiring prostitutes, contradicting Quinn's earlier assertion that they were not associates. Subsequently, Quinn was transferred to Topus Jail, a remote high-security facility in western Spain, situated 26 kilometers outside the city of Salamanca. Notably, Topus Jail houses ETA terror leaders and prominent Moroccan Al-Qaeda prisoners. Ironically, Quinn had previously shared a prison cell with Derek Delboy Hutch, Gary Hutch's brother, in Wheatfield Prison in 2011. At that time, Quinn and Delboy were close associates, having been part of the same gang. Their placement together was influenced by Delboy's offer of protection to Quinn. However, as time passed, Quinn found himself compelled to choose sides when Gary fell out of favor with the cartel. Despite Quinn's earlier loyalty to the cartel, especially to Daniel Kinahan, just 4 years after sharing a prison cell with Delboy, Quinn was enlisted by the Kinahans to orchestrate the murder of Delboy's brother. Having now been convicted of killing another notorious figure in the gangland scene, Quinn faces several decades in prison. However, the prospect of future threats looms large, particularly when he is eventually released. Members of the Hutch gang have consistently blamed Quinn for Gary's murder and vowed revenge, suggesting that Quinn's post-incarceration life may be fraught with danger.
In July 2010, a violent incident shook the quiet Dublin suburb of Fairview. At the Players' Lounge, a pub owned by John Stokes, father of soccer player Anthony Stokes, an unexpected attack occurred just after midnight on July 26th. A masked gunman, armed with 2 weapons, opened fire outside the pub. The doorman, Wayne Barrett, was shot in the head, while 2 bystanders, Austin Peel and Brian Masterson, were hit in the chest and back respectively. The assailant fled in a red Volkswagen Golf. Miraculously, all 3 victims survived the attack. The community was left stunned, wondering about the motive behind this seemingly random act of violence at a neighborhood pub. The getaway car was later found burned in Dublin's south inner city. As the investigation unfolded, Fairview residents struggled to come to terms with the intrusion of gangland violence into their area. The case remained unsolved for years until an unexpected lead emerged. Alan Wilson, a known hitman linked to the Kinahan cartel, became a person of interest during a separate investigation. His involvement in the Fairview shooting would soon come to light in an unexpected way. In 2017, during an investigation into the Byrne organization, authorities intercepted a conversation in Wilson's car. Wilson was recorded boasting about his role in the Players' Lounge shooting, claiming to be the gunman. However, when confronted, he retracted his statement, calling it mere bragging. Despite Wilson's denials, suspicions persisted. In 2021, he stood trial for the attempted murders. Faced with mounting evidence, Wilson pleaded guilty to conspiracy to carry out the murders, admitting to providing guns and getaway vehicles for the attack. Wilson received a 10-year prison sentence. While this brought some closure, the full truth behind the Fairview shooting remained unclear. The incident left lasting scars on the community. The investigation revealed complex family ties and criminal connections. Alan Wilson's cousin, John Wilson, also came under scrutiny and was briefly held by police in August 2011, a year after the shooting. The Wilson family had long been a fixture in Ireland's criminal landscape. John, along with his brothers Keith and Eric, had carved out a notorious reputation for themselves. Eric would later gain infamy as one of Ireland's most prolific gangland killers, eventually serving a life sentence in Spain for murder. Keith, too, would find himself behind bars for taking a life. John Wilson's brush with the law in connection to the Fairview shooting seemed to be a turning point. Although a file had been prepared and charges appeared imminent, John was ultimately released without formal accusation. However, this brush with the authorities was far from John's first encounter with the criminal justice system. At the age of 24, John had already dipped his toes into the murky waters of organized crime. He served as the getaway driver in the 2001 murder of Simon Doyle, a killing linked to Dublin's drug trade. This early involvement in serious criminal activity painted a target on John's back. He narrowly escaped death when he was hit at least twice in a shotgun attack in the driveway of his parents' home. In the years that followed, John Wilson aligned himself with Sean Hunt, a figure described as a criminal godfather. Hunt, a former IRA chief, had amassed considerable wealth through various illegal enterprises, including cigarette smuggling. However, Hunt's criminal empire soon found itself in conflict with another dangerous faction, the real IRA, led by Alan Ryan. The clash between Hunt and Ryan centered around protection money. Ryan had begun extorting funds from Hunt's operations, a move that threatened the delicate balance of power in Dublin's criminal underworld. In response, Hunt tasked John Wilson with eliminating Alan Ryan. This assignment led John to the Players' Lounge in North Dublin, setting the stage for the tragic events that would unfold. However, John's mission went horribly awry. Instead of taking out his intended target, he nearly claimed the lives of 3 innocent bystanders. This blunder infuriated Sean Hunt, leading to John's estrangement from the criminal group he had once called home. With his ties to Hunt severed and his younger brothers Eric and Keith both imprisoned for murder, John Wilson found himself in an increasingly precarious position. No longer under Hunt's protection, he became a vulnerable target in a world where enemies lurked around every corner. Despite the constant threat to his life, John Wilson demonstrated a remarkable ability to cheat death. He survived 3 separate attempts on his life, each one a stark reminder of the dangerous world he inhabited. In April 2011, he was shot in the knee during a late-night attack in his native Blanchardstown. Months earlier, in September 2010, he narrowly escaped when 2 armed gunmen arrived at his house, reportedly planning to shoot him as he took his children to school. When John's wife answered the door, the would-be assassins panicked and fled. Perhaps the most chilling incident occurred in March 2009, when John discovered a pipe bomb under his car parked outside his Blanchardstown home. The Army bomb disposal team was called in to defuse the viable device, averting a potential tragedy. These repeated attempts on his life made it abundantly clear to John that he was living on borrowed time. Meanwhile, the feud between Sean Hunt and Alan Ryan's real IRA faction continued to escalate. The situation reached a boiling point with the murder of Colin "Collie" Owens, who was gunned down while working at an animal feed store in Finglas, North Dublin. In a swift act of retaliation, Hunt ordered the murder of the alleged shooter, Daniel Gaynor. Interestingly, Hunt turned to Keith Wilson, John's younger brother, to carry out this hit. The choice of Keith over John spoke volumes about the erosion of trust between Hunt and the elder Wilson brother. Keith fled to Spain after the killing, but was eventually extradited to Ireland and convicted of Gaynor's murder. In the aftermath of these tit-for-tat killings, Hunt and the real IRA reportedly reached an uneasy truce, rumored to involve a substantial monetary settlement. However, for John Wilson, the damage had been done. With both his younger brothers behind bars and his former protector Hunt no longer in his corner, John found himself utterly alone in a world that seemed intent on claiming his life. The final chapter of John Wilson's tumultuous life unfolded on a September afternoon in 2012. As he pulled up outside his home on Cloverhill Road in Cherry Orchard, West Dublin, John had just collected his young daughter from school. A man in the passenger seat accompanied them, and John intended to drop his daughter at a neighbor's house for the afternoon. As John stepped out of the car and approached his front door, a vehicle drew up behind him. From it emerged a hooded figure, face obscured by a scarf. The gunman followed John into the hallway through the open door. In a matter of seconds, 6 shots rang out, shattering the quiet of the suburban street. John was struck twice from behind, once in the arm and once in the chest. The chest wound was particularly severe, leaving a 6-centimeter diameter hole and causing significant internal damage. As John lay on the ground, struggling for breath, his young daughter witnessed the horrifying scene, later recounting the sound of bang, bang, bang and the sight of her father rolling around. Despite the quick arrival of emergency services and prolonged resuscitation efforts, John Wilson succumbed to his injuries. The 35-year-old father of 2 had finally run out of luck, his violent past catching up with him in the most brutal fashion. The investigation into John Wilson's murder moved swiftly. The getaway car, a brown Volkswagen Passat estate stolen 2 days earlier in Selbridge, County Kildare, was found burned out with the murder weapon, a Ruger gun, inside. In a bizarre twist, the shooter was traced to a JD Sports store, where he had purchased new clothes and discarded his old ones in a skip. Forensic examination of the discarded items revealed firearms residue, petrol traces, and a phone. Within hours of the shooting, police apprehended a suspect, 36-year-old Keith O'Neill. Despite pleading not guilty to the gang-related murder, O'Neill was convicted by a jury and sentenced to life in prison in 2015. John Wilson's murder marked the 3rd Gangland assassination in just 5 days, and the 13th overall in 2012, highlighting the volatile nature of Dublin's criminal underworld. At the time of his death, Wilson had accumulated a lengthy list of enemies among various criminal factions in Dublin, including the real IRA group formerly led by Alan Ryan, who had been killed just a month prior. Speculation arose regarding a possible connection between John's murder and his suspected involvement in the Players' Lounge shooting 2 years earlier. However, senior officers also pointed to a more recent dispute between Wilson and West Dublin drug traffickers as a potential motive for his killing. The saga of the Wilson family and their involvement in the Players' Lounge shooting serves as a stark reminder of the cyclical nature of violence in the criminal world. From Alan Wilson's boastful claims and subsequent imprisonment to John Wilson's narrow escapes and ultimate demise, the story weaves a complex tapestry of loyalty, betrayal, and retribution. James Byrne, a notorious figure in the Dublin criminal underworld, has passed away at the age of 77. Known by the nickname Jaws, James died in Tala Hospital on a Saturday evening after a prolonged battle with illness. His death marks the end of a chapter for a family steeped in gangland activity and violence, particularly linked to the infamous Kinahan cartel. Byrne was not only a notorious criminal in his own right, but also the father of David Byrne, who was brutally murdered in the Regency Hotel attack in 2016, and Liam Byrne, who is facing charges for organised crime-linked offences in the UK. As the father figure to some of the most notorious criminals in recent Irish history, his death has caused a stir in both the criminal and law enforcement communities. The death of James Byrne comes at a difficult time for the Byrne family. Just a few weeks earlier, another family member, his nephew Liam Rowe, also passed away after battling cancer. Rowe was another known associate of the Kinahan cartel, further emphasizing the family's deep-rooted ties to the criminal underworld. At the time of James's death, a close relative was also arrested for public order offences and detained at Sundrive Garda station in Dublin, signalling the ongoing troubles facing this notorious family. James Byrne's death is more than just the end of a long life. It symbolises the end of an era of a criminal who was intimately involved in one of Ireland's most vicious gangland feuds. Byrne was linked to the infamous Hutch-Kinahan feud, a violent gang war that has resulted in numerous deaths over the years. His son David Byrne's death in the Regency Hotel shooting marked a significant escalation in this feud. Sources suggest that after his son's murder, James Byrne became deeply involved in planning retaliatory attacks against the Hutch family, including a botched attempt to kill John Hutch, the brother of Jerry the Monk Hutch, in September 2016. The attack, carried out by hitman Michael Carroll, failed, but it demonstrated Byrne's thirst for vengeance and his significant role in orchestrating violence from behind the scenes. Despite his age and failing health, James Byrne remained actively involved in the feud against the Hutch family. One source stated, he was desperate for revenge over the killing of his son and wanted the Kinahan cartel to kill as many Hutches as they could. His associates, including Liam Brannigan, met with Michael Carroll after the failed attempt on John Hutch's life, a meeting that showcased Byrne's influential role in this ongoing violent conflict. James Byrne, known as Jaws due to his aggressive demeanor, was no stranger to crime. His criminal career spanned decades, marked by various illegal activities, including armed robbery, fraud, and counterfeiting. In his younger days, Byrne was closely associated with notorious figures like Martin, the General Cahill, another violent criminal who dominated Dublin's underworld for years. Byrne specialized in stolen checks, forged documents, and fraudulent activities, which made him a target for law enforcement agencies like the Criminal Assets Bureau. Throughout his life, Byrne faced multiple legal battles. In 2002, he agreed to repay €43,000 in unemployment assistance he was not entitled to, and in 2004, he settled a cab tax assessment for over €378,000 by paying €208,000. The cab had seized cash and assets from his home multiple times, including a €35,000 Rolex watch that Byrne claimed was a gift, though he never disclosed the giver. Despite his numerous legal troubles, Byrne managed to evade lengthy prison sentences, showcasing his cunning and resilience in navigating the criminal justice system. The Byrne family, especially in Dublin's Crumlin area, became synonymous with organized crime. The neighborhood itself was a stronghold for the Byrne Organised Crime Group, acting as a hub for their illicit operations. James Byrne's son, Liam Byrne, lived just across the street from his parents, and his home was one of several properties seized by CAB in their ongoing efforts to disrupt the Kinahan cartel's operations. David Byrne, another son, lived nearby until his murder in 2016. The Byrne family's close proximity to one another in Crumlin exemplifies the tight-knit yet dangerous nature of their operations, with each member playing a role in sustaining their criminal enterprise. Byrne's wife, Sadie Byrne, also played a role in the family's activities. Though not directly involved in crime, the High Court found in 2018 that she, along with James and other relatives, had access to proceeds from criminal activities carried out by the Byrne Organised Crime Group. Despite their legal troubles and constant surveillance by law enforcement, the Byrne family maintained their presence in the criminal world, highlighting the deep entanglement of their personal and criminal lives. David Byrne's death at the Regency Hotel in 2016 was a turning point in the Hutch-Kinahan feud. The attack, carried out by members of the Hutch gang disguised as armed police, made international headlines for its brazen nature. This single event sparked a violent and bloody retaliation from the Kinahan cartel, with James Byrne being a key figure pushing for revenge. The gang war that followed resulted in numerous murders and attacks on both sides, creating a climate of fear and tension in Dublin and beyond. Every year, James and his wife Sadie would leave floral tributes at the North Dublin hotel where their son was murdered, a grim reminder of the violence that had claimed their son's life. However, Byrne's involvement went beyond mere grief. It transformed into a driving force for more violence. Investigators believe that Byrne, fueled by the loss of his son, helped identify targets for the Kinahan cartel and pushed for continued aggression against the Hutch family. James Byrne was not only deeply involved in the Hutch-Kinahan feud, but also maintained strong ties with the Kinahan cartel, led by Christy Kinahan and later by his son Daniel Kinahan. Byrne's own sons, Liam and David, were considered senior figures within the cartel, operating as major drug traffickers and organised crime figures in Dublin. Liam Byrne, currently detained in London's high-security Belmarsh prison, faces multiple charges, including conspiracy to possess firearms and perverting the course of justice. In addition to Liam Byrne, Other close associates of James, such as Thomas Bomber Kavanagh, face similar charges, underlining the family's ongoing struggles with law enforcement. These trials are expected to be lengthy and complex, potentially lasting up to 8 weeks, and revealing more details about the extent of the Byrne family's criminal empire and their connection to the wider Kinahan cartel operations. In the months leading up to his death, James Byrne's health had deteriorated significantly. In recent years, he had kept a lower profile, no longer appearing publicly at gangland funerals or other criminal gatherings. His absence was noted at the funeral of his nephew Liam Rowe, who died after his own battle with illness. Despite his failing health, Byrne's influence in the criminal world remained significant, with law enforcement continuing to monitor his activities and those of his associates closely. Byrne's death was announced with a death notice that painted a picture of a man surrounded by family and loved ones at the time of his passing. His wife Sadie, still reeling from the loss of both her son and nephew, is said to be devastated by his death. She plans to visit her son Liam in prison before his trial in the UK, highlighting the ongoing struggles the Byrne family faces in navigating both their personal and criminal lives. James Byrne's death closes a significant chapter in Dublin's gangland history, but his legacy lives on through his surviving family members and their continued involvement in crime. As a patriarch of a criminal family that played a central role in one of Ireland's most violent gang feuds, Byrne's influence and actions will be remembered for years to come. The Byrne family, with its ties to the Kinahan cartel, remains under scrutiny by both Irish and international law enforcement agencies. The violence and bloodshed associated with their name continue to cast a shadow over Dublin's streets. The question now is what the future holds for the Byrne family without its patriarch. With Liam Byrne facing serious charges in the UK and the remaining family members still under intense surveillance, the once powerful family may be on the brink of losing its stronghold in the criminal underworld. However, as history has shown, the cycle of crime and violence is difficult to break, and the legacy of James "Jaws" Byrne may continue to influence the streets of Dublin for years to come. The death of James Byrne, a veteran of Dublin's underworld, marks the end of an era. Known for his connections to the Kinahan cartel and his deep-seated vendetta against the Hutch family, Byrne's life was defined by violence, crime, and loss. His passing may bring some closure to a dark chapter in Ireland's gangland history, but the impact of his actions and the ongoing feud he helped fuel will likely continue to echo throughout the streets of Dublin. As the Byrne family prepares for life without their patriarch, the question remains: will this be an opportunity for the family to step away from a life of crime, or will they continue to follow in the violent footsteps of their patriarch? Law enforcement agencies remain vigilant, knowing that the death of one gangland figure often leads to a power vacuum that others are eager to fill. The story of the Byrne family is far from over, and their criminal legacy will continue to shape the landscape of Dublin's underworld for the foreseeable future. In the heart of Dublin's south inner city, Crumlin and Drimnagh were more than just neighborhoods. They were the epicenter of a criminal underworld that shaped the destinies of many. This world, steeped in violence and power struggles, was where Liam Rowe, known as Bop, made his mark. Born into a world where survival meant navigating the treacherous waters of crime, Rowe's early life was a stark contrast to the more glamorous aspects of his later years. Crumlin, with its tightly knit community, was a place where every street corner and alley held memories of struggles, conflicts, and alliances. Rowe's upbringing in this environment exposed him to the harsh realities of street life. The area's grim reality was painted vividly by the constant presence of gangs and the ongoing feud that defined the local criminal landscape. Rowe's early forays into street trading and petty crime were a precursor to his deeper involvement in the criminal world, laying the groundwork for his future as a significant figure in Dublin's underworld. The Crumlin-Drimna feud, a notorious conflict that began in the late 1990s, was more than just a local dispute. It was a clash that resonated throughout Dublin's criminal circles. The feud was characterized by a series of bloody confrontations, each more violent than the last, and left a trail of devastation in its wake. For Rowe, aligned with the Crumlin faction under Fat Freddie Thompson, the feud was both a battleground and a stage for his rise within the criminal hierarchy. One of the most significant events in this feud was the 2002 attempt on the life of Brian Rattigan, a prominent leader of the rival Drimna gang. Rowe's involvement in this attack was a testament to the violence that defined the feud. The assassination attempt, meticulously planned and executed, was a bold move by the Crumlin faction. However, despite the precision of the attack, Rattigan survived, highlighting the unpredictable nature of gang violence and the constant danger that lurked around every corner. The attack on Rattigan was just one chapter in a series of violent incidents that marked the feud. The murder of Darren Kearns and David Douglas, two individuals wrongly believed to be involved in the attack on Liam Rowe at the Red Cow, underscored the ruthless nature of the conflicts Liam Rowe was involved in. Their deaths, driven by mistaken identity and suspicion, were a grim reminder of the high human cost of gang warfare. As the 2000s progressed, Rowe's role within the Kinahan cartel evolved. From a street-level enforcer, he rose to become a key figure in the cartel's operations. This transformation marked a significant shift in Rowe's responsibilities, moving him from direct involvement in violent acts to a more strategic role in managing the cartel's operations. His ascent was a reflection of his skills and his ability to navigate the complex dynamics of the criminal world. Rowe's new role involved overseeing logistics, managing drug trafficking routes, and securing properties for the cartel. This shift from foot soldier to a high-ranking operative was accompanied by a change in Rowe's lifestyle. His rise in the cartel was marked by luxury and excess, a stark contrast to his earlier, more modest existence. Rowe's new wealth allowed him to indulge in a lifestyle that included designer clothing, luxury cars, and extravagant vacations. This transformation was a testament to the power and influence he wielded within the cartel. Despite his elevated status, Rowe remained a target for law enforcement. His high-profile lifestyle and connections to the Kinahan cartel made him a prime subject for investigations by the Criminal Assets Bureau. Rowe's attempts to maintain a low profile were often undermined by his visible wealth and the frequent scrutiny from the authorities. His high-stakes lifestyle, coupled with ongoing legal threats, created a precarious balance that defined his later years. The Crumlin-Drimna feud left a lasting impact on Dublin's criminal landscape, shaping the lives of those involved and perpetuating cycles of violence. Rowe's involvement in the feud was a key factor in his rise within the Kinahan cartel, but it also left him with a legacy of violence and suspicion. His suspected involvement in high-profile criminal activities, including the murder of Brian Rattigan's brother Joey and an attempted murder in the Coombe district, highlighted the ongoing repercussions of the feud. The violence associated with the feud was not limited to direct confrontations. The suspicion and paranoia that fueled the conflict led to tragic and often unjust consequences. The deaths of Darren Kearns and David Douglas, driven by mistaken identity, were a reflection of the broader impact of the feud on innocent lives. Their murders, along with the failed attack on Rattigan, underscored the indiscriminate nature of gang violence and the high cost of living in a world defined by conflict. Rowe's role as a trusted lieutenant of Liam Byrne, a key figure in the Kinahan cartel, was a testament to his influence and status within the criminal world. His responsibilities included managing various aspects of the cartel's operations, from drug trafficking to money laundering. This elevated role brought with it significant risks, including constant scrutiny from law enforcement and the ever-present threat of violence from rival factions. By the late 2010s, Rowe's life had become a complex interplay of luxury and danger. His high-profile lifestyle, characterized by luxury cars, designer clothes, and extravagant vacations, was a stark contrast to the ongoing threats and scrutiny he faced. The Criminal Assets Bureau's investigation into Rowe's finances and lifestyle highlighted the contradictions in his life. Despite his claimed unemployment, Rowe's substantial wealth and lavish lifestyle were a source of ongoing concern for the authorities. Rowe's involvement in high-profile criminal activities, including the murder of Joey Rattigan and the attempted murder in the Coombe district, continued to haunt him. These activities, along with his high-profile lifestyle, made him a target for both law enforcement and rival gangs. The relentless pursuit by the Criminal Assets Bureau and the constant threat of violence underscored the precarious nature of Rowe's position within the Kinahan cartel. The Regency Hotel attack in February 2016, which resulted in the murder of David Byrne, Rowe's cousin and a fellow Kinahan affiliate, was a significant event in the ongoing feud. The attack, carried out by the rival Hutch gang, highlighted the escalating violence and the personal cost of the conflict. Rowe's response to the attack, including his actions during the Regency Hotel incident and the subsequent legal battles, was a testament to the high-stakes nature of his life within the cartel. Liam Rowe's life came to a tragic end in August 2024, following a battle with aggressive cancer. His diagnosis, made only a few months prior, marked a dramatic turn in his life. The disease, compounded by the stress and danger of his criminal lifestyle, led to his death at St James's Hospital in Dublin. His passing was a significant event in the ongoing saga of Dublin's criminal underworld. The funeral service held for Rowe at Our Lady of Good Counsel Church in Drimnagh was a somber affair, reflecting the dramatic changes in the gang's fortunes. The contrast between Rowe's funeral and the opulent displays associated with other gang-related funerals was stark. The absence of high-profile gang members and the lack of extravagant displays of power highlighted the shifting dynamics within the criminal world. Rowe's funeral was attended by a mix of family, friends, and criminal associates. Among the mourners was Sadie Byrne, the mother of Liam and David, Lee Gibson, a Drimnagh resident and known associate of Liam Byrne. The presence of these individuals underscored the complex web of relationships and alliances that defined Rowe's life and career. As Rowe was laid to rest at Byrne Brina Cemetery, reflections on his life were mixed. His journey from a streetwise youth to a key figure in the Kinahan cartel was marked by both achievements and tragic failures. The story of Liam Rowe serves as a poignant reminder of the high cost of life in the world of organized crime. His rise and fall are emblematic of the broader dynamics of Dublin's criminal underworld, where every triumph is overshadowed by the ever-present shadow of danger. The legacy of Liam Rowe is a reflection of the broader patterns of organized crime in Dublin. His life, marked by ambition, violence, and eventual decline, is a testament to the high price of living a life on the edge. The narrative of Rowe's life is a complex tapestry, woven with the threads of power, conflict, and personal downfall. Rowe's story is not just one of individual ambition and failure, but also a reflection of the broader dynamics of organized crime. His rise within the Kinahan cartel, his involvement in the Crumlin-Drimnagh feud, and his eventual decline are indicative of the cyclical nature of violence and power in the criminal world. The story of Liam Rowe, like so many figures in organized crime, is a reminder of the high cost of a life lived in the shadows. As Dublin continues to grapple with the legacy of its criminal underworld, the story of Liam Rowe serves as a cautionary tale. His life and death are emblematic of the broader struggles faced by those who navigate the dangerous and often deadly world of organized crime. The legacy of Liam Rowe is a reflection of the complexities and contradictions that define the world of criminality, where every triumph is tempered by the ever-present threat of danger and retribution. Brad Dempsey was born in the early 1990s in Dublin, Ireland, into a world of crime, violence, and intrigue. His father, Fat Freddie Thompson, was one of the most infamous and feared figures in the Irish underworld, a criminal mastermind with a reputation that stretched across Dublin and beyond. As a son of such a notorious figure, Brad was exposed to the world of organized crime from a very young age, whether he was aware of it or not. His mother, Vicky Dempsey, would later testify that she feared for her son's future, knowing that his upbringing would be shaped by the dangerous world around him. Dublin itself during the 1990s was rife with gang violence and drug dealing, and many children in the city were influenced by the chaos around them. For Brad, the line between right and wrong was often blurred, and his early years would soon see him pulled into a world of crime that would define his life. As a child, Brad's life wasn't like that of most kids. He was thrust into the world of criminality due to his father's lifestyle. While most children were playing games and attending school, Brad's formative years were spent in the shadows of his father's violent empire. His father, Freddie Thompson, was a leader in Dublin's criminal underworld, heavily involved in drug trafficking, extortion, and a series of violent murders. As Brad grew older, he witnessed his father's influence in Dublin and understood that this life, however dangerous, was one that his family was entrenched in. At the age of just 9 years old, Brad's criminal exposure took a shocking turn. He was reportedly used by the notorious Kinahan Cartel, a gang linked to his father's operation, to smuggle a significant sum of money. According to reports, he was used as a drug cash mule to carry €5,000 through Malaga Airport in Spain. It's unclear how much Brad understood of the situation, but his involvement marked a disturbing initiation into the criminal world at a very young age. His early exposure to illegal activities would prove to have a lasting impact on Brad, shaping the trajectory of his life. His mother, while acknowledging that Brad was influenced by his father's actions, expressed her deep guilt and sorrow for the choices that led her son down this dangerous path. As Brad entered his teenage years, the influence of his father and the criminal lifestyle became more apparent. Freddie Thompson, known for his ruthlessness and dominance in the Irish underworld, continued to be a figure of power, and Brad couldn't escape his father's legacy. The young Dempsey had been exposed to criminal activities at a young age, and his proximity to such violence and criminality would come to shape his worldview. While Brad was still in his early teens, his father's criminal activities were getting more complicated and violent. Thompson's criminal empire had expanded beyond just drug trafficking into extortion, money laundering, and eventually, involvement in organized crime syndicates across Europe. Freddie's ties to violent gangs and his role as a key figure in the Dublin criminal scene made him a target for law enforcement, but also a respected and feared figure within the criminal community. At the age of 17, Brad was seen at several criminal events, further cementing his involvement in his father's criminal network. While it's unclear whether Brad was directly involved in any illegal activities at this point, it was apparent that he was moving in the same circles as his father. His actions and associations began to signal that he was being groomed to take on a larger role in the family business. As the years passed, the grip of law enforcement on Freddie Thompson's criminal empire grew tighter. In 2005, Thompson was arrested for the murder of David Douglas, a prominent figure in the criminal world, leading to a lengthy trial. Freddie Thompson was later sentenced to life imprisonment for his involvement in the murder. While his father was behind bars, Brad's life continued to unfold in the shadow of his father's arrest. His criminal activities, however, were just beginning to take shape. The void left by his father's incarceration saw Brad become more involved in the Dublin criminal scene. It's not clear whether he was fully in charge of the operations during this period or merely a figurehead in the background, but his name began circulating more frequently in association with his father's former associates. As Brad Dempsey grew older, his name became synonymous with violence and criminality. By the time he was in his early 20s, he had gained a reputation as a dangerous and unpredictable figure. While his father had been a criminal mastermind who used his intellect and strategic mind, Brad was more volatile and willing to engage in violent confrontations. His reputation as a ruthless enforcer started to spread, especially in the context of gang rivalries that were increasingly erupting in Dublin. In 2017, Brad Dempsey was arrested for his involvement in a violent shooting incident. It was just one of several acts of aggression that Brad was accused of carrying out, and it served to further solidify his role in his father's criminal activities. In a shocking turn of events, it was reported that Brad had taken part in a series of shootouts and confrontations between rival factions in the Dublin criminal world. It was clear that he was not only continuing his father's legacy, but also establishing his own reputation as a ruthless figure in the city. By 2022, Brad Dempsey had reached a critical point in his criminal career. In January of that year, he was arrested in connection with a shooting incident that occurred on Margaret Kennedy Road in Dublin 8. During the shooting, Brad fired 5 shots into a car occupied by 4 individuals. The shooting was part of a larger escalation in the gangland violence that had taken hold of Dublin, and it was seen as another violent act in a long line of similar crimes committed by members of the criminal underworld. Brad Dempsey was later convicted of possession of a firearm and other related charges, and in 2023 he was sentenced to 8 years in prison. His sentence, while significant, did little to reduce his prominence in the criminal world. During his time in Mountjoy Prison, Dempsey was known for causing problems with other inmates, and he was kept in isolation for his own safety due to the nature of his criminal background. During his time in prison, the possibility of a reunion between Brad Dempsey and his father, Freddie Thompson, was discussed. However, prison staff expressed significant concerns about the risks of such a meeting. Given the high-profile nature of both individuals and the violent reputations they held, any attempt for a father-son reunion would have posed serious security risks. Both Freddie and Brad were seen as high-value targets within the prison system, and staff were highly cautious about any interaction between them. Despite their shared history and criminal ties, the likelihood of a reunion between father and son remained slim, with both individuals seemingly operating in separate spheres of the criminal world. Freddie Thompson, serving a life sentence for the murder of David Douglas, continued to serve time in Portlaoise prison. Meanwhile, Brad Dempsey's life in Mountjoy Prison remained clouded by further violent outbursts and clashes with other inmates. Brad Dempsey's life, much like his father's, has been defined by crime and violence. Growing up in a household where criminality was the norm, Brad's exposure to the underworld was inevitable. From a young age, he was thrust into a dangerous world, and his actions as an adult mirrored the path his father had carved before him. However, it's clear that Brad has his own violent streak, and that he is willing to use force to protect his interests. As a young man, Brad had the world at his feet, but his potential was overshadowed by the criminal influences that surrounded him. The tragic story of Brad Dempsey is one of opportunity lost, and a life wasted on violence and criminality. As of now, Brad Dempsey remains incarcerated in Mountjoy Prison, Dublin, serving his sentence for the 2022 shooting incident. The future for Brad remains uncertain. His violent tendencies, coupled with his criminal family ties, make his rehabilitation unlikely. However, his life behind bars is not entirely devoid of drama, as his time in prison has been marked by numerous altercations with fellow inmates. The likelihood of his continued involvement in the criminal world remains high once he eventually serves his sentence, and whether he will ever be able to break free from his father's legacy is a question that remains unanswered. The story of Brad Dempsey serves as a stark reminder of how a criminal legacy can shape the lives of those born into it. From a young boy involved in illegal activities to a violent enforcer in Dublin's criminal world, Brad has walked the same path as his father. Whether he will be able to escape this path and forge a new future remains to be seen. But for now, he remains another product of Ireland's deeply entrenched criminal culture. That is it for our video today. Like and subscribe and comment below what you think of Brad Dempsey, and I will see you on the next video.